Call to order the special town council meeting for Wednesday, September 14th. We rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of America, and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So before we do roll call, I would like to have a moment of silence in memory of Beth Ukedik, who passed away suddenly Sunday evening. Beth was a 23-year employee of the town, first as dispatch and then as police records clerk. So let us all remember her for her dedication and her kindness. If we could have a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. Beth, roll call.
Mike Aurelio.
Here.
Brian Blazak.
Present.
Wayne Pondinas.
Present.
Michael Schilling.
Here.
Gerald Swetz.
Present.
Joe Wizawati.
Here.
David Westland.
Present.
And Beth Hernandez, present.
Okay. Item number 3 is public comment. We have 3 people signed up for public comment. First one would be Bill Purcell. If you could step up to the microphone and state your name and address, please.
My name is Bill Purcell. I reside at 8649 Fairway Drive here in the town of St. John. Been a 17, 18-year resident now, and a couple of things I'd like to bring to your attention, gentlemen, particularly you, Mr. Swetz. One thing I want to talk about is the budget that you're working on. It's come to my attention that the clerk's office just recently received the budget at the 12th hour, yet that office is expected to in an expedited fashion, approve that budget and get it certified. That may not happen on time, and if it doesn't, my question is, was it intentional that you left the clerk out of the budget process? Was it intentional that you gave it to the clerk's office at the 12th hour? Was it intentional that you did that hoping for failure, knowing that she's up for re-election next year? That's my first question. My second question has to do with the hiring policy that you've enacted for the last few town meetings that I've seen. You refused to replace the gentleman who left and or retired from Public Works. Instead, you transferred a couple of guys over from Parks after you wasted the park board with your slash and burn methods, and you've refused to replace the guys at the Parks Department. So now we're coming into winter. We have more homes, more people, and more streets to plow, and 2 less people to run the plows. I don't know what you're thinking or what you're planning, but you have more to do with less people to do it, and you still haven't hired anybody that has left, the 2 people. The third thing I want to bring up is I noticed item 7 is a study session for fiscal year 2023 for the annual town budget, and apparently it's between the town manager and Cinder Dalton, which I assume is an accounting firm of some type. And my question is, why are just those 2 individuals meeting for a planning session when one of them just got the job he's got today? Knows nothing about running this town yet. He's been here too new. He's a new guy on the job. I think you need to put somebody else with these gentlemen to help make a better sound financial plan for this town going forward. It's just a sensible thing to do. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you, sir.
Bill Manasopoulos.
Bill Manasopoulos, 10011 Parish Avenue. My comment is also about number 7 with the study session about the town budget. It's on the agenda again, but as a Waterworks and Stormwater Board member, we have yet to be included in this year's budget like years past. The clerk treasurer has always included us and kept us informed. When could we be expected to be included in the Waterworks budget? It seems just a little odd that this year we haven't been included in it. Thank you.
Robert Visdell.
Hi, I'm Robert Visdell. I live at 8173 West 102nd Avenue, right behind the skate park. And the thing I have a question about is last Saturday I was out of town and everything, and hey, I like the skate park. I'm glad you just built it and everything. I think you overspent, but that's besides the point. The thing is the first thing you tore up, like about 6 months ago, was to put a sewer line in going up to my property, and it basically from the walking trail to the back end of my property and my next door neighbors. And last Saturday, I guess they put the straw and the hay in, and nothing got done with that at all. And then my neighbor was home and he said something to them. So they did like a little grading on it, but I got some pictures, and the stems of the weeds that were growing there and everything is still coming out. And I don't know if you guys paid for this already and everything for them to put the straw and the hay down, but if the town did, they did a half-assed job, if you ask my opinion, because they didn't finish everything. The first thing that got tore up didn't get fixed, and it's still messed up right now. And is the plan for them to still come back and fix that later? Because I've been living there for 4 years now, and the first year I lived there was all weeds going up to the back of the soccer fields. But then after living there for a year and cutting the weeds down myself just so I could get up that way, the second year the town paid for straw and hay to be put down. It's like 60 feet from the back of my property to where the soccer field was at. They put a walking path in. So the first 40 feet got paid, somebody from the town obviously paid for straw and hay to be put in there and everything. They didn't do the last 20 feet. I did that myself just so that I had the whole thing done. I wasn't going to wait 2 or 3 years for it to fill in with grass. And this time, they did the whole thing again, and we're going to have to pay a second time for this to get done. And they didn't even finish it from, when they did everything last Saturday. So I could show you the pictures of what it looks like and everything if I could bring them up to you.
Yeah, why don't you bring them up?
Okay.
You're saying they broke a sewer pipe in the process?
Break the sewer pipe. But as you can see in this one thing, when they first did this, they took the mesh out, and the mesh is still sitting there. I'll go back. But they didn't finish doing that part of it. From the walking path to the back end of our property didn't get done. And I was just wondering, did the guys get paid and they just didn't finish everything they were supposed to do? Because if I was home, I'd have been yelling at them.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Let's make sure we take care of that.
I'll hand it off to our town manager and make sure that gets.
appreciate that. Thank you, sir. And that's all. One other thing I want to just say is I just think that I'm glad that we got the skate park back there for the kids and everything, and I'm glad we got the other park that's going in on the other side and everything. But I don't have a problem with the park board being eliminated, because I didn't like the fact that they could spend all our money with anybody without any okay of anything. They could just went as high as they wanted and spent it. I'm glad that the town council at least has to okay everything that gets done over $4,000 now. So I'm glad you did that. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Robert.
Can I address that, gentleman?
Repeat that, Wayne?
Can I address Mr. Fizdale?
Sure.
First of all, thank you for coming. Now, on Saturday, finished that grass as much as they can do. They went around the park. They knew it was going to rain. And I've something to your wife. I was going to look into it. I talked to the Parks Department today. I sent a message to Gruen Landscaping. And I think that it did rain. Now, it did rain on Sunday. It did rain on Monday, I think. That's why they're not done yet. Spone Ranch is paying for that. They even patched the walkways for a safety hazard. They got all that taken care of. But you got to give them a day. I think it's raining and it's kind of muddy. But that was all done by Spone Ranch. They didn't break anything. And thank you for your comment. You like the skate park. Then you made another comment about town council taking over. The last time the town council took over the Parks Department, we didn't get a lot of things done. So when I was the liaison, I had the park that got disbanded. They performed a lot of work. They did 3 basketball courts, a tennis court. They put a fence around garbage dump that the back there at Heartland, where all the dumpsters are. They did a lot of stuff. They re-roofed 2 pavilions. If the previous people had been on board, you wouldn't have got that done. So, but
But again, thanks for coming tonight. And that we're looking into that the grass area, the north of the path. And thank you for your comments again.
Okay, so I don't know if so they're not done yet, they've got more work to do yet, so.
Okay, as long as they're working on
it.
They are, okay. All right, on item number 4 is public hearing. Item A is ordinance 1779. Joe?
So this is an ordinance that will be establishing the fee for the stormwater management. And this is for your MS4 compliance. So the town's advertised the maximum rate for the fees for the stormwater management compliance. The Stormwater Management Board will be meeting in a special meeting to make a final recommendation on these rates to the town council on September 22nd at 5 p.m. These final rates will be up for consideration at your next town council meeting for second reading and adoption. And at this point, I wanted to turn this over to Senator Dalton.
Actually, are proofs of publications in order?
They are.
Okay.
As you know, this is a multi-step process. The Stormwater Board did meet last week, I think it was, to begin their conversations and hear some initial information about the stormwater rates, the potential rates. At that time, we had been operating, I want to clarify right away at the beginning today, we had been operating with a parcel list that turned out, the one we had been given was not complete for the entire town boundaries. It was only complete as to St. John Township. And so the reason for the amended rate study is that it does include all 10,000 plus parcels of the town, including the other 2 townships. The good news about that, despite the fact that I don't love that the first one was slightly off kilter, the better news about that is that we were able to reduce all the rates individually per parcel as a proposal to you because the quantity of parcels increased. So I believe that you have a copy of the amended rate study. And if we could look for a moment at page 5, Exhibit B, which is the chart here of rates. I'd like to start there for just a moment, and then we'll work back through a few of the other things. The Stormwater Board reviewed this original document at their meeting last week. So on Exhibit B, you have listed 4 different options, A, B, C, and D, based on a different proposed monthly fee, which is the right third of the document there, of that page. So just using option A as an example, the first line being agriculture, a 100 classification for property code would pay $3 a month, a total of $36 a year. And based on the 67 that we believe are in town, that small piece would generate the $2,397 revenue. So as you work your way down then in option A, you see that there are over 10,000 parcels listed total. And if selecting that option at the lowest rates that are just listed there as an example for you, the revenue would be $652,000 plus a few change. So I'm going to start there to give you an idea of what we were looking at through the rest of the rate study. If I could direct your attention, please, the first few pages with the paragraphs explain why the study is needed, what it's for, the different things that are included. The reason ultimately for the rate study and ultimately the decision by the council is to come into compliance with MS4 obligations by the state. They're unfunded mandates. The state says every town, city, and county need to address the MS4 concerns which are the municipal separate sewer system. The town has started that. The town has been audited for it. The State Department has given a listing of things that need to be fixed, need to be complied with, and so this will help you get in compliance with that. The secondary reason for the study, and ultimately a proposed rate if you chose to vote on one or impose one, is then to assist with the other stormwater drainage projects in town. So MS4 compliance relates with drainage ditches and all of more the natural drainage that occurs in town. Secondarily, then, would be the infrastructure needed to assist with the drainage, culverts, separate storm sewers, separated out from your sanitary district sewers, things of those nature, infrastructure of that nature. Exhibit A, then, is the start of a breakdown for you of the separation of those different things. Along the top line is the operation and maintenance expense, and what you have before you is a 5-year look forward, a 5-year plan on how these different expenses would both average out and be expensed out. In a few moments, we'll talk about what is included in that operation and maintenance. The second line being the MS4 related compliance, that relates to a listing of items specifically for MS4, a lot of which the engineering firm will assist with. They are all the things to get us in compliance with the state mandates. The third line being equipment and other capital. Again, we'll see a listing in a few minutes. That is an average capital investment for various items that the town already operates, vehicles specifically, as well as providing for some funding ahead of time to build up a fund for a new piece of equipment. And again, we'll get to that list in a few minutes. The fourth item, stormwater and flood control rehab projects. Those have been specifically identified by Bob Davis and his department, as well as with some conversation with Bob V. On the infrastructure-related things, culverts that are needed, drainage projects in relation to road projects in conjunction with. You'll see that there's a variety of expenses over those 5 years. Ultimately, we will use an average of those, which again, you'll see in a few minutes. And then the bottom is just some other capital costs, as again, you'll see at the bottom in a few minutes. So in total, the 5-year average of the capital improvement fundings is the $592,000 that you see toward the bottom right side of that schedule. In total, each year, those add up approximately 1.3 million, give or take. You'll see the number fluctuates a little bit. Putting that calculation together is what drives us to the different options that you had before you that we looked at to start with. You see the very bottom, option D, is a number for revenue in line with something that would fund the items on Exhibit A. In between, then, you have some other options of items that would fund part of what is suggested to be needed and then not fund other pieces. Exhibit C, very quickly, is setting out options A through D against that expense list to demonstrate again what proportion or what amount could be covered and what would not be. You should have attached then an appendix, the last 3 pages of the document. Joe, those got included on the amended one, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. Appendix A then is the listing put together, Bob V. in assistance from Robinson Engineering. This brings into play, or demonstrates, I should say, for you, that list of expenses that we looked at on Exhibit A. So the top is the operational and maintenance expenses, the $193,000. Some salaries and wages are proposed to be included. For example, right now, Bob V. is paid for his MS4 work out of the other departments. And instead, when he is working on stormwater, then stormwater would be proposed to pay him as part of this proposal. Materials and supplies that he needs to conduct the different inspections and work that he would need to do to get the MS4 compliance items in order, and then some other expenses there. That large section in the middle between the two lines that totals $224,000 are the rest of the items needed for MS4 compliance. It's a list of things that are on the state's audit report, included in the mandate for the town to accomplish. Some of them are annual items. Some of them are one-time items. Robinson has taken that into consideration as they've made the list here for you, and you'll see once in a while a notation, which ones are annual and which ones are more a one-time situation. As well, you'll see in the parentheses some things that Robinson will continue to do and assist with, as opposed to some things that will become or that are town responsibilities. All of the expenses, though, are included there. The bottom section of Appendix A1 brings over then what we'll look at on the following page, the capital replacement expenses. So Appendix A2 is that demonstration for you of the various vehicles that are used. You'll see that the use is considered in that department share column in the middle. So sometimes Public Works might use a particular dump truck, sometimes Stormwater would. Same thing as you go down each vehicle, so that Stormwater pays its share and Public Works and whatever department is related to pays their share. The bottom two items listed in that bottom box section are suggested items for purchase, either to replace what is there or something new. As I understand, the utility boards have been discussing a sewer vac already, so that's been in some conversation along the way. You'll see that that, again, is divided in share, percentages. As well, you'll notice the useful life column. So the intention is, for example, for the vehicles that you currently own, the rate, the revenue, would still be gathered and then allow you to save some cash in the proportional life of the vehicle, so that once the vehicle has to be replaced, the goal ultimately is that you've built up the cash in the fund and could pay cash for that, as opposed to having to take out a lease or a bond of some kind. The last page, Appendix A3, is those list of infrastructure projects that Bob Davis put together. The ones toward the top of the list had been previously engineered through Haas. So those plans were given to Robinson to make sure they could update for current costs of things. We all know that supplies and concrete, everything has skyrocketed. So they did adjust for the inflation costs of those in the numbers that you have before you. The future ones toward the bottom half then are basically placeholders, quite frankly, but to keep a consistent budget, knowing very well that there are many projects in the pipeline that will be coming down the road, which gets you to that $592,000 average. So those pieces in the appendix were what was compiled for you into Exhibit A, which is that initial expense listing, coming into about 1.3 million. This is basically the same information that the Stormwater Board discussed at their meeting last week. Of course, no decisions were made at that time, as we expect no decisions to be made by you tonight either. It is been publicized, though, and noticed up for public hearing, so you're welcome to take those at the time that you're ready. One other thing I'd like to comment on before I step away from the microphone or prepare to answer questions is the ordinance itself. That's been given to you as well. The fees that you see listed on page 2 are in fact the higher fee from the they are the highest fee currently on option D, because that is the amount with the correct number of parcels, over 10,000, that would get you to that 1.3 million number. Again, it is written this way now at the highest level, so that if you choose to impose a fee that's something less than that, you're able to do so. It's expected that the Stormwater Board, when they meet next week, will come up with some kind of recommendation of whatever fashion to then bring back and give to the council for your next meeting, the second reading, 2 weeks from today. The ordinance does contemplate several important pieces, not only the rate itself, but the function of how the billing will work. It does establish the fund itself, so that the clerk treasurer's office can establish that. And the billing process is easy to go through the Lake County Treasurer's Office. That is our suggestion to you. So it is collected twice a year with the property tax bills. It is simply a coding process that, if this is approved, we give the auditor's office the ordinance, they get it into their system. They then provide us the actual true list of parcels that will be included in the property tax bills. So the number should come in pretty close to the 10,000 that you have before you. We convert some file formats basically to attach whatever fee it is that is attributable to the particular parcel code. Send that file back to the county so that the auditor can then include that on the tax bills through the treasurer's office that gets sent out. You'll see the ordinance does include some provisions if someone does not pay. There is a process in place by where the Lake County offices, the treasurer's office, will attach a additional fee to that. But ultimately, if the town chose to do so, the final step would be to impose a lien on the property to be able to recoup that money if there were ever a property sale. There's no cost from the county to the town to include that on the billing. The fee simply is the preparation of that, the time that it takes us to get that file sent back to them. But there's no additional fee that they charge you. If someone did not pay, there would be a small fee to the town at that time to file a lien. And then when they pay their bill, the lien is released, the property's free and clear, and it's back to their full ownership. So I think those are the highlights I wanted to make for you tonight. Certainly, any questions are welcome.
Only question I have on the fee schedule here, let's just pick option A, residential, that's $60. Is that, now it goes on the property tax, is that gonna be like $60 per so many 100,000 value of the house, or is that just a flat $60 and that's all you pay?
Yeah, no, great question. Great question. The proposal we have for you here is a flat fee, no matter how big the property is, and it's an annual fee. So for that 60 example that you had, the spring tax bill would say $30, St. John Stormwater, and the November tax bill, or the one that's due in November that you receive, I think, end of October, right, would say another $30. So 60 total for the year.
I know sometimes when you look at your bill, it's $60 per $100,000 of assessed valuation, so like a $300,000 house wouldn't be paying $210.
Yeah, and that's based on assessed value, which is how the property taxes are determined. This is strictly a fee. It's not a tax. It's a fee that's established for specific services that are needed with the stormwater things we've been discussing. And it has no relation to the size at all. Now, I should mention very quickly, there are some towns and cities that do their stormwater fee based on acreage. So a quarter acre pays a particular amount, and then as the acreage goes up, the fee increases. It's very complicated to do that. Despite the fact that the county has a GIS system and each town and city have a GIS system, there are always inconsistencies with them. And so it's difficult to get a completely reliable list of properties. That was kind of an early way of thinking when MS4 was first kind of starting, because industry, for example, on a large parcel probably has a lot more impervious surface, a lot more concrete, a lot more asphalt, much less ability for natural drainage. People have realized that that's very difficult to do, that the proposal you have in front of you, where it's just by property class code, is more simple, and it still gets you to the same result that you need, which is to fund the projects that you need.
Chris, I have a question. So I'm just trying to make sure I understand this completely. So Exhibit A is telling me what our real costs are. So we go through the years 2023 through 2027. So 2023, it's 1.3 million and change is actually break-even point for the town.
That's true.
So in reality, if I pick option A through C, any of these options, that the costs need to be covered somewhere. So either through, it's just gonna be covered through some other tax or fee, tax. So why would a town do that? So is there other towns doing it that way? Why would a town charge a fee, a pass-through fee that is a loss?
That's insufficient. Two reasons. One, you may not do all the projects that are listed, right? This is, what you have before you is the best-case scenario. MS4 really needs these things accomplished, and then we've got these infrastructure projects that really need to get done. So if you chose to defer a project, for example, you would free up maybe, whatever, $200,000. So maybe you would decide that you wanted to do a fee a little bit less, down to 1.1 million, for example, as a total prediction. Other towns and cities might make up that difference with a bond. Works fine. Bonds can pay for infrastructure. Wouldn't pay for MS4 operational things, but it could pay for the infrastructure. That does come with costs, right? So all bonds include interest paid. And that is the choice that some towns or cities make to fill that gap.
So are you aware of what other towns are charging for this type of fee? So Schererville, Dyer?
Yes,
Love to
and
know
I
where
should
we
have
at.
brought,
Yep.
brought copies to the Stormwater Board meeting. I'm sorry, I should have brought copies for all of you. I can email that to you because I think I gave them my last one out of my folder.
Yeah, you could be great to email it to me. I'd just like to know
Yeah.
where we're at in the
Because I can't
marketplace
put my
for fee.
computer onto your system. It doesn't plug in that way for the screen. Okay. Hammond and Gary operate on the acreage system. Very complicated. Actually, though, I can pull it up and read a couple things to you because the options that you have, even option D, are in the middle range. Crown Point, for example, has decided that they just were going to be, I guess, extra simple, for lack of a better word, and make everything $12, no matter what.
24.
Commercial, industry,
Right across the board
residents.
at $12.
And Dyer's at 18.
Since this is an
Dyer's
annual
18.
Maryville, according to Matt Blake,
They're at
Most-
18 across the board.
Yes,
everybody.
for residential.
Dyer is at 18.
Maryville charges, according to Matt Lake, $12.
Yep.
Crown Point was, what'd you say, 10? 12?
And I think she said 11.
11?
Crown Point's at 12 across the board.
12.
Maryville's
12 for
12.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All other cities or towns that we used in the comparison have a variety of rates as you do, proportional to the use. As an example, Hammond's highest rate for industry is at $162 a month. Their commercial ranges between 60 and 90, so the proposals you have in front of you are much less than that. Gary ranges, and I should include, Hammond's residential is $7.75
A year or a month?
a month.
And you said ours was around 6?
We're proposing 10, well, at least in here it is.
The largest option D for you on residential was 10, I think.
Okay.
10.
And that, Michael, would cover our operational costs for the year. In other words, you're at break even for about $10.
Maryville residents are $9. Commercial range between 27 or 63, depending on the type of commercial property. Their industry is 63. Excuse me. Lowell, commercial and industry are at 49. Some commercial apartment units are at 21. So I can send this to you. Lake Station simply has two categories. What you have before you are the 6 different types of property class codes. Lake Station decided just to simply do residential, non-residential, and vacant. So they just have 2 usable property class codes and then the third vacant one, so I guess really 3 total, but their fee, they did just a flat rate for the entire year, which comes out to $16 or $33 a month, depending on the type of property. Dyer also uses, and Cedar Lake as well, use an acreage unit, an ERU, and that can get complicated as well. Part of the decision that will need to be made, right now included, is all charitable and municipal properties pay the fee as well. It is allowed by statute. There are a few municipalities that exclude those types of properties from their fee and do not ask them to pay.
Well, they have drainage, so.
They do have drainage, absolutely, which makes including them in the fee equivalent across the board, without making any exceptions or special circumstances. Railroad properties are included as well, by the way, as are cemeteries.
I do have a question. Since we pay property taxes in arrears, when would we see this fee hit our tax bills?
So this process, if voted on yet before the end of October, with time to get it on the tax bills, the Lake County Treasurer's Office, Auditor's Office, Treasurer's Office needs this by the file I mentioned by the end of October. So if the vote doesn't occur by then, it would have to wait another year. It would then appear on the 22 pay 23 tax bills, so it would be in place right away for that May bill that's due in June or due in May, and then again in the fall. Again, that half and half, it's split half and half. And then from each year after that, it continues.
So June 2023 would be the first time residents would see this on their tax bill?
Pay, right, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And when would we receive the actual money from the same time?
Usually by June 30th, we'll
Okay,
get our
they're-
tax
they're pretty
distributions.
Pretty punctual.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. June 30th and December 30th of
Right.
each year.
Okay, they're that close.
Other questions?
So are you anticipating if the creation of this fund is to occur and we're going to start seeing revenue as early as June 30th of 2023, is this contemplated in the 2023 budget or will that require additional appropriations?
Yeah, so I personally thought it was premature to include something like this in the budget when it's still so preliminary on the total, right? So yes, it would include an additional appropriation come January.
And then the operations, maintenance, capital purchases, are those included in the 2023 budget elsewhere, or have they been excluded in anticipation of this?
Nothing was excluded from the current budget in anticipation of this. For example, the salary that Bob V. could receive from the stormwater.
But Bob V., I
is-
mean, he's wastewater water, so
Right.
he is their operator. I don't think he's stormwater, but
He's got the MS4 duties assigned to him at this point. I don't know what proportion of his job is assigned there, but
So his
So-
salary simply is in the budget, but obviously not out of this fund. We haven't done it yet.
Right.
We
But
know
his
what it's
salary
doing.
should not come out of this fund, but we can talk about that
Right.
separately. Okay, and then as far as capital purchases, you mentioned like a jet vac. I don't remember what you had specifically in the 2023 category. Are those currently in our budget, or are they not? Jason, I don't know if you can go back to the page with the capital expenditures. You had the chart.
Exhibit A.
A2, I saw a truck vac or sewer vac.
Down one. There you go.
Next page, yep.
Yep, so I don't know what years we're anticipating these purchases.
Yeah, I don't expect in the current budget for 2023 that anything is included there.
Okay.
For these items.
Okay.
Because you wouldn't collect all the money until the end of the billing cycle,
That's true too.
so you wouldn't have the money to spend until 2024
Till June.
on the equipment.
Well, June
Well, June,
of
you only
20
have half of it.
June, you'd have some.
Some.
Right.
And as I understand, there's still some conversation on that sewer vac with the boards and timing and the useful life of what is still there for maybe another year or two, something like that. So there's still some discussion to be had on that.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions?
Wayne, you got anything?
No, thank you.
I will email all of you this community rate comparison that I was referring to so you can see it. It's not every county or every unit in the county. It just gives you some options to see some different options that other communities do.
Okay, since this is a public hearing, we go to the part where it's open to the floor for public comment. Anybody want to speak to the ordinance 1779 from the floor? Okay, if no one's going to speak, then we'll move on to item number 5, and that is town council action. So, what we're looking to do here then would be to consider ordinance 1779 on first reading with the maximum numbers as listed. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then the MS4, the Stormwater Board will meet and later and make a recommendation to us on what the actual fee structure should be, so that if it's different than this, it can be modified at the second reading.
Correct.
Does that
Right.
sound
I think
accurate?
the motion should include setting it for second reading,
Pending recommendation.
yeah, September
28th.
28th.
So is the reason why we're doing it, sounds like we're doing this in reverse order to me, but I'm a novice. This exactly how the order, so is this because we need to have it done by October 30th? That's why we're doing it like this? And not going through the store, them giving us a recommendation first?
It's because of timing, Mike.
Okay, timing, okay.
Well, we're still looking at approving this in September, an October deadline, so I mean, it's not like we're under the gun, but,
Right, it's pending recommendation from the Stormwater Board.
yeah.
So if my question then, or my ask would be, if we're not under a time crunch, I'd rather see what the Storm Board have to say.
Well, you're going to be able to see that, though. So,
Are we
So-
putting the cart in front of the horse? here?
You're not taking
well, you're
final
not taking
action.
official
No,
action
it's
on
not
this
final.
tonight,
This is
right?
only a
You're
first
just
reading.
It needs to
hearing-
go through two.
Right.
That's right,
Understood.
you're hearing it,
Understood.
so you're just keeping the process moving pending their recommendation. Could you do what you're suggesting? You could, but, you know, you're gonna get it, you're gonna get that recommendation at hopefully in plenty of time before the 28th.
They meet next Thursday, right, Joe?
That's correct, at 5 PM.
It's a pleasure, counsel, with you. Just wanted to bring that up.
Okay. So is there consideration for this motion? Would be the question. And it would be motion to consider ordinance 1779
On first reading.
on first reading, with second reading being scheduled for September 28th.
So moved.
Okay. Is there support for that?
I'll no support on it yet.
Okay. Are there do you have other questions?
No, I don't have any other questions.
Okay. All right, so I have a motion, I have no second, so that's gonna die. So that motion dies. So what's our next option? Do I have a motion at all?
I say motion to defer until the outcome of the Stormwater Board.
Are we prepared to have a special meeting before then, or would we have to have a special meeting on this?
Well, we have a town council meeting after the Stormwater Board,
Are we gonna have enough time within October to get this
because we
finalized?
have an October regular meeting.
So,
Yeah.
right, my understanding then, if we have unanimous vote at the next, so we get a recommendation that everybody's happy with.
You could just
If
pass
we
it
have
on second
unanimous
reading.
vote, you could do two at the same meeting if it was unanimous, correct? And that would be,
If I might, what I understood was happening today was that the first reading was occurring. You were hearing the information, opening it up for public hearing, which you've done. There didn't happen to be any. And then passing it over to second reading, which is in 2 weeks.
Well, we didn't get a
Not
support.
voting. No, I know. Not voting on anything today, other than just simply continuing it to the second reading, which is a pretty standard course of business on an ordinance. In the meantime, then next week, the Stormwater Board has their second meeting to develop whatever their recommendation is going to be for you, which you'll then receive as soon as their meeting is finished, in whatever fashion that comes. They're planning to have it in writing so that you can see it and read it and have it available. And then the second reading is on the agenda for the end of September, at which point you then have the recommendation and make a vote on the ordinance at that time.
Well, no, it would be a first reading at the September meeting because we didn't act on it tonight. But then there's,
Historically, they've always taken, and the language gets a little bit loose, but, you know, they've historically taken a vote to then set that they've considered this on first reading, or they've heard it on first reading, which is the language I like. I've heard it on first reading, and I'm setting the second.
so
Reading.
Right, which
I
is
guess-
not a vote on the ordinance at all, though. It's just simply setting it over, right?
It is.
Yeah.
So I think the problem with what you're suggesting is that historically, every ordinance that they've ever done, at least in the last 2 years, there's been a vote right there to hear the first reading. And so at this point, I don't know that they've technically heard it. So without voting on Brian's motion, right? Like, and so you'd have first reading kind of continued over to September 28th because there was no action on it. You'd have that recommendation. The problem with what is being suggested is if that one or more councilman does not want to act and approve it, we don't get the
To suspend the
unanimous.
rules.
To suspend the rules, right? We're stuck then with another meeting
Month.
to do this, which puts you to the end of October, which puts us right up against your deadline, unless they hold a special meeting for the sole purpose. Well, I suppose they could put whatever on the agenda they wanted, but for the purpose of doing that.
Right.
You know, I understand that. So I guess my hesitation here, wanting to do any of this, is that there's several options, right? And what we kind of discovered is that we're not totally sure some of this equipment is being voted through by the other board. So I don't know if they're gonna need the sewer sucker, so that changes these numbers. So I guess I don't wanna put the cart in front of the horse. I feel like I'm putting the cart in front of the horse. I want them to, the water board, to tell me what they're gonna be buying, and then we could say, this is a pass-through, right? So I wanna set the pass-through accurately. I think anyways, that's my discomfort. That's what I view it as. I would rather not, I would rather,
Are you comforted at all by the fact that you're gonna get that input before you take any real action? And the way Senator Dalton has set this up is they've given you the options, they've advertised for the highest option. So you are 100% fine, you know, and I'm just gonna use residential for an example. In the ordinance, it's $10 residential. You are 100% legal to bring that back to the $7 in option A, if that's what the Stormwater Board says, okay?
yeah, I got that.
You just can't go higher. You can't turn around and go, yeah, I know we advertised for $10, but we're gonna go 20, right? Like, you can't do that.
Yes, and I understand that for sure, but where I would say business-wise, if I'm going through a bidding process and I want to really not encourage them to overspend or buy something, oh, hey, they're telling us to have the highest number, or this number. I'd rather them, they're the water board, right, to do their homework, and then we don't need that, or we do, and then we can have a closer look at really what is the capital needs there really do have. I guess that's where my discomfort. Now you understand what you're saying. We're perfectly legally fine. So, but I would rather, that's why they're there, to give us that recommendation, I feel. So I'd rather, that's my opinion.
Feel about the same way, Mike? you'd like to hear what?
Well, I just got a motion to defer until the outcome of what their meeting is.
Okay.
If I get support, I get support. If not,
I'll
dies of a
second.
lack of a second.
Yeah, I'll second that.
I'm sorry,
I'll second this.
what was your motion, Mike?
To defer.
About motion
Defer
to
until the outcome of the stormwater
Okay,
board.
all right, thank you, Mike, and support by Mike. Questions or comments? Then roll call vote, please.
Mike Aurelio.
Yes.
Brian Blazak.
Yes.
Wayne Pondinas.
Yes.
Michael Schilling.
Yes.
Gerald Swatz.
Yes. Okay, that is deferred. We are on to item number 5. Consider the master agreement with Robinson Engineering. Joe?
So, first of all, thanks to Councilman Pondinas for bringing that to the attention. And we did get that corrected. That was sent right back out. So the council has corrected copies of that. So the master engineering agreement helps the town with making some of the engineering projects move along a little bit quicker. Projects that are included as part of the master agreement are a set fee and are not billed on an hourly basis. So basically, what the engineering costs of a project are going to be, upfront. Larger projects will be put into the into this agreement, and we're not paying endless hourly rates for engineering services. So obviously, some of the smaller projects won't go into the master agreement. They'll just be billed at regular time. We'll continue to pay those, hourly rates. But fees for projects that go into this agreement can be negotiated. So on each of the projects that we tell them to move forward on, those will be negotiated prices, and those will be paid out over the course of that project.
Okay. Questions or comments?
Why do we call it a master agreement?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Why do we call it a master agreement? When we hire anybody else to do anything, it's not a master agreement. It's just a proposal or an agreement for so-and-so to represent us legally or whatever they're going to do.
Right. Well, with the master agreement, like I said, when we're dealing with a project specific to engineering on a larger project, so think like, for instance, the SCADA system. If we had the engineer involved with the SCADA system, there would be a specific dollar amount that we would negotiate with them, and they would work on the progress payments with that whole project until that project's completed. So you're not paying all of your engineering costs on a ongoing basis. It's paid as part of a progress payment.
And when we did that SCADA system, I believe that we came up with a request for proposal, so we didn't use engineering because there's no way an engineer could design a SCADA system.
Right, no, Wayne, I was merely using that as an example, for instance, if you had an
No,
engineer design the project.
I brought that up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, kind of what you're mentioning, I noticed in the last couple sets of bills is that Haas, who's our engineering firm for many, many years, there's lots of add-on and hourly charges that continue to go on inside many of the projects we have them do.
Right, and
this cuts down on that.
I'm not
correct?
saying what Haas was doing was wrong. It's
No, I'm
just
not
this-
saying that at all.
This
This
stops
cuts down
a
on
lot
that.
of the hourly billing, and it sets it for project specifics.
This gives you a little better cost management over the project.
It does, and it helps kind of, cash flow and budgeting as well.
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a motion, or is there more comment? I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion to approve the master agreement with Robinson Engineering
Second.
and have the town council president sign it.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Brian. Roll call, please.
Mike Aurelio.
Yes.
Brian Blazak.
Yes.
Wayne Pondinas.
No.
Michael Schilling.
Yes.
And Gerald Swatz.
Yes. That is approved 4-1. Item number 6, a motion to approve the refund of a business license fee. Joe?
So this was a license that was paid for online. It was just done in error. So the amount's being refunded at the request of the department head.
Okay. Questions or comments?
How was it done in air, Joe?
Beth, did you want to speak on that?
It's my understanding that with the passage of your ordinance for business license late fees, this particular business must have late fees assessed. So this person cannot only pay the flat fee.
You got to pay the late fee too, right?
Yes, the building and planning department needed to calculate the late fees
Okay.
attached to the purchase of this or business license.
Yeah, and
All right,
I
thank
believe
you.
they paid it online too, didn't they?
Right, they paid just for a
Right,
business license renewal.
Right,
But
that was
did
it.
not pay for
The late fees.
late fees.
right.
Because they hadn't been assessed yet by the building and planning department.
So is this an overpayment?
So,
It's an underpayment, so Sergio's preference is to have her receive her $25 back and be assessed the correct amount.
Right, which is what we did last month with that building permit, I think. We refunded the whole amount so that we
Correct.
could get the correct amount and build in one shot.
Yes.
Okay,
okay.
that makes sense. Okay. So then there's a motion to approve the refund of the business license for receipt 81726 for $25.
So moved.
Thank you, Mike. Support for that?
Second,
Thank you, Brian. Roll call?
Mike Aurelio.
Yes.
Brian Blazak.
yes.
Wayne Pondinas.
Yes.
Michael Schilling.
Yes.
And Gerald Swatz.
Yes. So that is approved.
If I might, if we could kind of, if I can talk a little bit on this particular subject with respect to the refund. So I would like to have an ordinance on the next council's agenda that would authorize the clerk treasurer and me to issue the refunds under a $1,500 amount, and just have those put on the docket. It would expedite a lot of the smaller refunds and just kind of move things along and not bog down the council. It's still going to be on the docket, like I think that was past practice anyway. But according to Attorney Adam Decker, refunds have to be on a council motion because there's no
No ordinance?
ordinance in place right now.
Make sense?
It does, it just
Okay.
has never been our past practice. It's always been that it's showed up on your docket, you approve them, and then we mail out the check, and that's kind of
And my argument to Adam Decker was that's council action. So,
correct.
But
But whatever
Yeah.
floats your boat.
Okay. All right. If that makes it simpler and easier.
yeah.
Okay.
It sounds reasonable.
Also, I'd like to make the modification and get our reports and correspondence done here first, and then go to the study session on the town budget, if we could do that.
I got no objection.
Okay. Beth, any reports or correspondence?
I emailed the council an RTP received from the police department in the amount of $2,834.91. This is for a purchase of ammo that they were able to secure at a great price. They have to, I'm requesting that you authorize prepayment because in order for them to ship the ammo, they have to receive payment first.
Okay. You guys
How
have
did
that?
we accidentally stumble into that, Beth?
I don't know, it was Officer Wartzman who
Okay, it
found
was
this
surely,
government pricing option, and,
it was just an accident.
well, I think it's something that we already participate in
Yes.
for purchasing, and as he was doing, or as the police department was doing their due diligence, they found this pricing at 8 cents instead of 50 cents per round,
was gonna
and
say-
decided to move on it.
With the price of ammo gone through the roof over the last year,
Right.
it's a real good deal.
Yep.
We should buy some extra.
Yeah, if we could
Yes.
get extra, we should.
Great job saving
All
money.
right, so do we have a motion to approve the RTP for ammo procurement to the Indiana Department of Administration, LASO, in the amount of $2,834.91?
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. Support for
Second.
that. Thank you, Mike. Roll call?
Mike Aurelio.
Yes.
Brian Blazak.
Yes.
Wayne Pondinas.
Yes.
Michael Schilling.
Yes.
And Gerald Swatz.
Yes, that is approved 5-0. Anything else, Beth?
No.
Okay, Joe?
Yeah, just the town's third-party insurance contractor, BAS, is going through some branding changes to healthcare comp. Effective October 1st, employees can register in the new portal. Emails have been sent out to staff by BAS. Also, we are going to be doing a survey that's going to go out in the water bills here very soon. This is going to offer the residents of St. John an option to voice their opinion with respect to weekly versus biweekly recycling services. With this survey, though, we are going to be providing those specific costs associated with that, so it's not just a yes or no. So we're going to be seeking the feedback on that, so be on the lookout for that in your water bill. And that's all I have.
Okay.
They'll want it picked up every week.
Well, but we're going to have associated costs associated with that, too.
Joe, can I,
Last time they did a survey, they wanted it every week.
we did,
so-
but how do we have associated costs if we haven't gone out to bid?
Well, we've got a proposal from Republic, and with respect to the proposal, they're giving me cost on the recycling, whether we want to do it 1 week or every other week.
So we don't have to go out to bid, or you're,
I don't believe so. With respect to that, I would defer to council on that.
okay.
Yeah, I'd need to look at
Yeah.
the contract and
Yeah.
the term of the contract and all that stuff, right? Give you an answer.
Okay. Mike, anything?
No.
Brian?
No, sir.
Mike?
Yeah, quickly, we had our first meeting for the Parks Department, our Parks Board, our Parks Commission. One of the things we were looking for, would be helpful for the Parks Commission, would be our 2022 budget. Beth, could you forward us our budget and where we're at so far? Is that something you can send us? Send it to the superintendent of the parks?
Sure, Joe, if you don't mind, do you have it on your thing? I just sent them out to Michael O'Shea and you for the end of August. That would be where we're at for the year.
Oh, for the appropriation
Yeah,
report?
perfect. That'd
Do
be
you have the
perfect.
complete budget as well? Could you send just the past budget and that, and where at, that'd be wonderful.
There is
Those would be
also a
great.
link on the website for anybody who's interested. All of our budgets are on the website, so you can
Wonderful,
click
wonderful. And
the
then
link.
also, EDC, we would like to start honoring our new businesses coming into town. We've had several. What is an easy way for us to get our hands on new business licenses, new business coming into St. John? What is the best and most efficient and easiest manner for us to have just a continual link to new businesses coming into town?
Probably go down to building and planning and ask Sergio.
There's also a link on the website that lists all the business licenses in town.
We're looking for new ones, right?
Right, as the new one comes in, building and planning links it to the website.
So is there a
They
way
have
to
a-
just give an email sent to
Yeah, we should get you
the
a spreadsheet.
president of the board, EDC? That'd be great. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, Wayne, you have anything?
Skate park went over good. Everything worked out good. The skater finally came in, but everybody was happy. Place is clean. Everything's looking good.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing. So-
Thanks for your participation on that, Wayne.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we will go to our study session on the budget then. And Mr. Westland, I'm sorry, Mr. Westland, do you have anything?
No.
Okay.
Have a good night. You made the revision?
No, I'm not going. The first time in years I haven't gone for that game.
Dave, you're not gonna clock out and stay for the budget?
You know, it's interesting, you know, if I have any questions, I'll call Trista direct.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Good night, gentlemen.
I'll be with that.
Oh, okay.
You can start with that one.
Where did Trista go? Oh, there she is.
Relocated.
I looked over and you were
She
gone.
moved.
Relocated.
Oh, you're just gonna point out the numbers, is that what you're gonna do?
Yep.
Okay.
Easier for you to come over here.
Sure, sure. Thanks.
Yeah, interesting.
Doesn't say rocket science. Jump ship.
Guess so, that's it.
It doesn't make any sense to start without
No,
everyone here.
agreed.
Oh, no, I don't disagree, but I'm looking around and it's like, you're playing.
We had a mass exit.
I was gonna say, everybody
You
just.
start talking budget and people leave, how do you
Yeah.
like that?
Well, that's because it's so interesting.
We have a question on
To go back to your stormwater issue, could you give me some background on that? I don't have specific, comments on it, but how was that funded before? Was that through the sanitary and the water?
it. Funded through the general
Good question.
fund.
Right, it was not being raised, right?
We
It was just
were, we
being
were
paid through our
not in
taxes.
compliance with the state of Indiana's
I
law.
realize that, yeah. But is it because do we have a combined system? Is that the problem? And they want us to separate the system? Or,
Combined.
well, combined sewer and wastewater?
Has nothing to do with stormwater management. This is a state law that we were not in compliance
Have
with.
we ever had that before?
No.
Really?
That's why we're pressing, because the state has more or less, the fine is immense, okay? And if you don't follow the rules and the state law, you'll go broke paying the fine.
Well, I realize we should have had that, but I didn't know we didn't have it.
No,
That's what I
it's
was-
never been in existence before in the town of St. John.
It's been in existence, it's just been funded out of the general fund. This just is another avenue to fund it other than out of the general fund.
That's what I was.
That's right.
We've not been in compliance. We have, it's mandated that we do it for the state. What this does is you're gonna create a way to fund it other than funding it out of the general fund.
All right, that's what I'm
Sure.
sure you did on all these projects. I was wondering.
Yeah.
And that was part of my question, where some of those options were not covering the cost, or the potential costs of that. That's why I was asking, there was several options we were looking at. And that was really my question, if there's a spread here, so then how is that getting paid, of course, back through the general fund? And then is that the most appropriate way to fund that? I would argue not,
Ultimately, it's
right?
gonna be
So-
appropriate to fund it through this
That's right, that's right.
fee here, but you let them see which one's most appropriate for them to fund it before we
And
pick for them.
there's some spending there that's not clear, right? So then how do you set a fee, not knowing what your expenditure is, right? I don't think we're looking, I think you want to have that, way, make some sense with each other, right? So be linked.
Plus, since there was no revenue being generated to pay for the operation of the MS4.
Remove.
Therefore, with no revenue, you'd have to come up with it somewhere. And what does that bring you back to? Back to charging the taxpayers through their real estate taxes by increasing your budget, not having the money to cover it, and therefore, your taxes are gonna go up anyway. So why not properly fund it by state statute? And therefore, you have the vehicle by which to pay for the MS4 operation and requirements.
Well, in addition, you can bond also.
That's also true, yes.
That's right, but then it would cost you legal fees to get the bond, interest payment on the bond, and then what's your revenue source again for that, paying that bond?
That's very true.
That's true, but this is not quite the same thing, right?
Okay, well, thank you for clarification.
What are we doing? What's going on?
I don't know, they're waiting for Jerry
Are
and.
they coming back or what, these guys?
If the three of you, from you start, we can, I just,
I would
More
suggest we
appropriate.
Well, I think
go
the town
ahead.
manager should be here, it's
Yeah.
budget presentation.
You know, if you, it's kind of silly to say, if there's something here you think would be more appropriate for them being gone while we're covering it, but is there? Probably not.
I don't think so
Probably
myself,
not,
but
right?
We are live, by the way.
Go ahead and start without Jerry. Yes? Start without Jerry.
Yeah, he'll be back.
Whatever you think.
He was talking to Charlie.
He's talking to Dave.
He's coming
Okay.
back. He'll be back in a minute. He's right here. Let's go. Let's finish up.
So I think I'd like to just explain very quickly, first of all, and Joe, please jump in as needed, to explain what has happened from early July until now, so the last 2 months. In early July, I attended a department head meeting with, at the town manager's request, with the department heads, gave them the Form 1, which is, you know, the budget spreadsheet type things. That's what we put into Gateway to be able to get DLGF to approve everything. Gave them spreadsheets for their departments, which is very similar, as I understand, what Beth has done before, showing a few years of historical spending, historical budget, so they can try to plan for this next upcoming year, 2023. Joe then met with some of the department heads along the way, the next couple weeks as they were getting themselves organized. Joe and I met with them and had them go through what some of their big asks were, what some of the requests were. Talked about what's going well, what maybe should be tweaked or altered a little bit, in their opinion. I had several conversations along the way with members of the clerk's office. I was able to talk both with Beth and Katie along the way to get some questions answered that I had about how the town has functioned historically, where some different things are paid for. Department heads had their proposals back to Joe early August, I believe. Those were given to Beth at that time. Not yet organized into what you have as an almost getting close to final product today. At that time, it was just simply their spreadsheets. And then Joe, with my assistance, has been following up then with what you'll see today, which is where does everything fit together, basically? What does the big puzzle look like? Joe and I had a conversation with Beth as well last week, I believe it was, to go through some different questions that we all had. And I guess that's, as a framework, generally, that's where we
Right,
are.
but at that time, I did not have the budget last week. So I want to just be clear on that. Thursday, when we had the Zoom call, did not have the budget until you emailed it to me at 1:30 while we were on the Zoom call.
Last week?
Thursday at 1:30, yes. So I had Friday, Monday, Tuesday, and today to review what they did in 2 months.
I think that's when I received it as well.
So the workbook you have in front of you has a lot of information in it. It all builds really from right to left. The yellow tabs that you see are the salary tabs for each department. Joe started with those as a way to make sure to keep organized the different distributions. You all know that employees are paid from various funds. Those tabs include the breakout for insurance calculations, FICA, Medicare, PERF, all that kind of thing. The reddish and brownish, maroonish color tabs in the middle relate then to each department's specific funds. Of course, some are in the general fund, and then many departments have other funds that they use, both revenue, receipt, and expenditures happening. The blue revenue tab, I'm working my way now to the left still. The blue revenue tab are revenues provided by Best Office. And the numbers included then pull through to this budget tab that's in front of us from that revenue tab. As you know, sanitary district and water district both receive property taxes, which is why those are in your budget as the council. And so those two tabs are next. The summary of expenses we might get to today, it's really just overarching totals. The all funds tab then includes every single of the other department tabs. So all the red and maroon colors are included in that all funds tab. There is a sort little caret up in the upper left corner. If you open that and wanted to be able to filter down to certain funds more quickly than scrolling, you have that availability. Joe, is there anything you want to add at this point?
No, I mean, so far you're covering.
So I'd like to start with the budget tab first, which is the one that we're all looking at. Of course, as you know, you can advertise high and then make cuts along the way before you come to the actual vote. And what you have in front of you is a list of each of the budgets, each of the funds, that is included presently in the gateway budget that's put up. There are some other funds that the town is not required to include on gateway because they're not property tax based. And so you don't see those listed here, although you will see them in the all funds tab. They're still listed in total. The expenses are still listed. They're just not on this main, more public tab, I guess we'd call it. To begin with then, in column C are the revenues. Again, those come from that revenue tab provided by the clerk's office by Beth. The couple quick highlights there. It does include the max levy appeal as estimated by the clerk treasurer's office. And Beth, that's currently at the numbers that you gave me today, the 258,000, as well as the 15 and the 18 for the two districts.
Okay.
In their respective funds. It's important that the budget include that amount from the max levy appeals, even though those haven't been approved yet, so that the advertisement includes them. And if they are approved by the DLGF, then it can be included properly in the budget. One other, I guess, note quickly is that the CCD rate listed is calculated at the 5 cents, 0.05, that you passed earlier this year. And so that will be appropriately advertised and calculated then for the budget. The second column then, over as far as the values go, column D, the expenditures. Those again all pull from the all funds tab. The current column of D shows a 3% raise to all employees and elected officials, including the clerk's office and the town council as elected officials. We can circle back in a few minutes into some of the other highlights of the particulars, because ultimately you'll see in the column next to that, column E, that you have some funds that would show a negative result right now not be in balance in the expected 2023 revenues and expenditures. Next to that, column F is the current as of the end of August fund balance. So please understand or remember that you will still have additional expenditures in September, October, November. A few of these funds do receive your property taxes, so those will be refurbished in December. Some others are just miscellaneous revenues, but it's important to have those balances there as you're making your evaluations and then understand the flow of that as well.
So quick question, I noticed on F there you have debt services go bond at a negative 101,000.
We're waiting on our tax distribution in December to replenish the fund.
Is that okay to have a negative balance in a debt service fund?
We pay we pay our bond based on taxes, so there's nothing that you can do about it. It's always run this way.
Yes, there's nothing wrong with
There's
it.
nothing wrong with it.
It's always negative at this time of year? Last year it was
Correct,
100,000
because we
negative too?
because we made our first bond payment.
So
We make them twice. So we spent the money, and then we're waiting for the second draw to make the second payment.
So at the end of the year, it'll be
It-
zero, basically?
At the end of the year, we see a positive balance, but then halfway through 2023, it'll go negative again.
So at the timing of the bonds, right, the time of the bonds, when you have to pay it, it's a yearly cycle when you collect it. This is a timing issue, kind of, are you telling me? Does this balance?
Bonds are due, this bond is due, it is balanced properly. The bond is due January 1st and probably in June sometime. It's a timing issue of our tax distributions. It's always cycled this way. You could do probably some sort of a temporary loan, but then you would just loan the money right back out, which it's just,
And that makes it more messy.
it's totally more messy. But if you did not want to see a negative fund balance, that would be the only answer to that, solution to that problem.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the explanation.
Column I is a second expenditure column. That's simply demonstrating for you if you authorized a 4% raise, again, all employees and elected officials. The total increase on the funds that you see here is listed at the bottom in row 31 at $35,900. That amount seems kind of low at first blush, but please keep in mind that this listing does not include the utility funds. And so because multiple employees are paid also from the utility funds, the raise, 3, 4, 5%, whatever it is that you decide on, is also occurring and attributable in those funds as well. And then column L, as you see at the top, is the 5%. So that gives you an ability to kind of look across and see what the funding is. The 71,900 number at the bottom is the difference between 3% and 5%. Attributable just to that 2% raise difference for the funds that are listed. So I'm putting this together, as Joe and I talked about some different things. We also met with the Budget Finance Committee along the way and have had an opportunity to talk as well with Councilman Blazek. We're scheduled with President Sweats and Councilman Pontinas sometime soon.
I think it's tomorrow.
Yeah, but Mr. Pontinas is once he returns back to town
Oh, okay.
early next week.
You can't make the,
He may try by phone tomorrow
Okay.
briefly. And so we talked through some of the different decisions that the council's going to have to make. Obviously, the raise was one of them. The request from the police and the fire department to add 1 or 2, their request for both of them is 2 total additional employees. Things from the public works department as far as expenditures that they need. So we talked through all that, and those things are included in here. In an attempt, though, to also give you something that is looking close to a balanced budget, there were some things that were adjusted for in what you have in front of you. What I mean is specifically, Right now, the numbers you have one increase of employee for the police department and one increase of the fire department, to try to get that top row in the general fund to a balanced budget. If you instead choose to give them each 2 employees, we simply adjust the number before it's advertised, and make that quick adjustment. The spreadsheet is set up so that we can unhide a row and the information is there ready and waiting to be included. Again, the reason that the 3% is in column D as opposed to the 5 is to try to get you headed toward a balanced budget. You absolutely can decide to give the 5% raise, pull that number over instead, with the understanding that you then would be dipping into the cash balance, presumably during the year, unless you underspend in other areas, to be able to fund that 5% raise.
Wouldn't you say, Trista, for intelligent budgeting, with the unknown, with inflation running rampant that we're carrying with right now, everybody in the United States, from a conservative aspect, wouldn't it be more prudent to try and keep your budgets aligned, because you don't know what's coming down the road?
Yeah, I think a perfect world, a balanced budget is ideal.
Of course.
And honestly, even to go further than that, an unbalanced budget that errs on the side of the black
Conservative, right?
with additional revenue is even better.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of expenses facing each one of your departments. And, there are some things included in here that have the ability to be trimmed and adjusted, and have you all make some decisions about where the priorities are. An example of that, and I want to try to get through some of these more specifics here in a minute, but an example we would come to is the fire department asking for some additional stipend, as well as an increase in their standard pay to put their ranks more in line with the police department ranks, to kind of levelize them out. And so that is a large chunk.
Well, it's a large chunk, but we also, last year, gave them some extra pay to help again, so I don't know how many years you can keep.
Yeah, and those are all decisions that you have to make, you as a council. So if I can go ahead and kind of start clicking through each of the departments to highlight, if nobody has any questions about this particular page at the moment. Not used to such a gigantic icon. This is kind of odd.
Yeah, that's rather large.
I'm not used to mine either.
Can you make that bigger by chance?
Yeah,
Yes. Give me just a second.
icon is.
Right, the icon's plenty big.
Trista, you and I, we're gonna have to get to some sort of understanding on the health insurance funding requests, because I cannot find it in your budget. And that was $1 million. I've looked, like I said, the last couple of days, and I don't see it.
Yeah, and we'll come to that. And I've asked Joe the same question, honestly. So we'll come back to that as we go.
And they cannot be spread out like the salary ordinance. It's just not possible. So this one's very concerning because of the dollar amount that's attached to the health funding requests. I can follow your premiums. I can't follow your health funding requests.
In the town council budget, we've got, of course, payroll always starts at the top. This is general fund to start with. Council members are at the top. The reason that the proposed number in column I is actually listed less than what was budgeted for this year is because this is tied to that salary tab I was mentioning, which again, sorry, they're all going to be small, I guess. And the number that you see listed is the actual calculation of the salary without any kind of rounding or extra additional, I guess, cushion added in. Thank you. Okay, perfect. And so that's where that number comes from. And everything is linked. I believe Joe sent you, emailed you this spreadsheet, and so if you wanted to, you could look and see where the tab is that this information comes from. Joe, this is your budget, so why don't you go ahead and share highlights with them?
So, I mean, there's really no, major changes with respect to any additional personnel. There's no major changes with respect to our supplies. We do have some engineering considerations that we have included and consulting. I'm trying to think here, going through this.
Look, that engineering is here.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's really nothing that really kind of stands out. Building repairs and maintenance, that's something we're really going to need to start taking a look at. There was nothing ever like put in a 5-year plan for any ongoing maintenance, deferred maintenance for town hall, stuff like that, new roofs, stuff like that. So we're going to have to start taking a look at those items as well.
Good idea.
Yeah.
I do want to point out, if I can interrupt for a moment.
No, go ahead. I know what we're going
This
with that.
extremely large number that you see under other charges and services. In order to help coordinate with the max levy appeal, instead of trying to divide out the 258,000 that's going to be requested into all sorts of different little spots, because we don't have the decision from the DLGF yet, we simply put an expenditure amount equal to that in this line. Once it's approved by the DLGF, then it would be the expectation that council would make a transfer and decide where that extra levy is that you've received, where you want to focus that expenditure on, and you can make a transfer at that time.
Okay.
But this was just a quick, easy way to make sure that it's advertised, and that it's somewhere in the expenditure, again, giving you the ability later to move it, to spend it where you need it.
So this was just added.
Yes.
Where's longevity?
That is one area, and glad that you found that. I had it on my list and had forgotten to get it situated. So it absolutely should be in here. I apologize for that, and we'll get that corrected.
Yeah, you're looking at about 78,200 in longevity. That should be in that council budget.
And I think the reason that it got set aside for a moment, and not I think, I know, the committee was discussing the fact that the ordinance, when it was passed last year, had it all paid from the general fund. And my question was, do you want it to continue to pay that way, or do you want it to also be distributed across the various funds where people are paid? If you leave it in the general fund, the ordinance is fine that you have, and it just completely continues along. If you want it distributed across the other funds so that all the payroll is consistent, because the longevity is an additional payroll check, basically, then that would need to be worked into the various funds that we have here across the percentages.
Which way would you recommend? Across the funds here or just in the one?
To me, it makes more sense that it follows the way that you pay people, right? Your payroll is spread out across these different places. This is an additional payroll check. I don't know, Beth, if your accounting process, if you have a preference one way or the other, because your coding in the pay fund then in Keystone is different when a check is paid from a different area than normal.
The amount of work that it takes to code employees 5-6 different ways, potentially for a $125 check, is very extensive. We'll put it that way. It can be done. It just, we need ample time to prepare that sort of work. I mean, it takes a lot of time for distribution.
Is that a one-time check?
It's a one-time check. So that was kind of the thought when you guys originally had passed longevity, from my understanding, that it's a similar, you're treating it similarly to, if you scroll back up, your
Stipends.
yeah, your town event stipend, and things of that nature. That's kind of
Okay.
your thought process, I believe, behind it.
Okay.
Is this more efficient for the clerk treasurer's office to keep it this way?
it would be more efficient, but I'm not, I do understand an argument to have longevity and/or a town event stipend divided in the same manner in which employees are being paid. It's just,
All right, something we need to work through.
it's,
Okay.
We can work together on that, that's reasonable.
can we, Joe, I'm sorry, the health insurance funding request, can you walk me through where that's at in the budget?
Sure, Tricia, you want to drive the bus on that? So if you want to kind of go through
Whoa.
how we pull the numbers together on this.
I'm sorry, I'm not used to this mouse. I apologize.
And I want to make sure we're speaking the same lingo. We are not talking premiums, we are talking funding requests.
It's the total cost for the insurance, which would include the amount that we're maxed out on funding
Because
requests.
if I'm looking at that chart in the upper right-hand corner, I would be led to believe that's only premiums, if that's what I'm looking
you.
at.
So as I understand it, I did, is that all right? Okay. As I understand it from Joe, this chart up top is the actual cost of the insurance.
Okay,
And that includes the.
premiums,
That's the premium plus the cost of the maximum funding request.
correct.
Right. So
But
that's
not-
the total cost.
Claim requests.
That would be included in
It-
that portion.
I disagree.
Why?
Well, we can get,
I just disagree because.
Beth, we can get clarification on that. I mean, I have no problem with that. If there's an error on that, I'm okay with it. But this is the information that was provided by the insurance carrier.
This is, we base our premiums on, like Joe said, the maximum claim. So our premiums are set a little bit higher, which overall, I mean, I'd like to see how you guys arrived at those numbers, but we're close enough that I don't take huge issue with it.
But we
But
want to make sure it's right.
premiums,
We
these
wanna make sure it's
premiums
right.
do not, it's my opinion, they do not include our health insurance funding requests. So basically, the way it's set up, since we're partially self-insured, we, as the town and as the employee, pay a certain premium percentage on your check. It's a deduction. That's what I believe this includes. Then on top of it, when an employee or a child or whomever has to go to the doctor or whatever happens, we get funding request claims weekly on top of that. That's where we arrive at that $1 million, you know, who was it? Carl came, remember, and he gave you the 1,098,000 or whatever was the estimated number in claims.
Part of
That is the self-insured portion of it.
Okay.
Then we have to factor in like stop loss and different things where if we hit a maximum similar to a deductible, you know, we don't go higher, but I don't believe that's contemplated in this calculation, and so I just want you to be aware, there's potentially $1 million hanging out there, and I say that even if I devoted or had my staff devote as much time as needed, I don't believe you can take claim requests and break it out on salary distributions, because each claim request is going to come with various different employees, children, spouse, whatever. We don't know what's going to come in our way as far as who's going to get sick or have to have surgery or what. So how in the world, like basically you're saying on a weekly basis, Katie would have to sit, go through each individual person, find out who the child is or the spouse is, from what department. Do you see? I mean, it would just get to be absolutely ridiculous because we don't know names of your children, your spouse's name, or anything like that, because the claims come in by name. So Joe Schmo comes in and he's got a claim request for a certain amount. How am I supposed to track down with HIPAA laws who Joe's the child of, under what department? It just,
Do you know what other towns are doing for that same additional problem?
Can I close out of it?
Yeah.
Do you want me to open a different one or just shut it?
Just move it over.
You got names.
So do you know what other towns are doing
Oh,
for
I
that problem that
apologize.
Beth is describing?
Now, it's my belief, state law, and this was
Okay,
something that
sorry.
we went back and forth on. Jerry, you may slightly remember this. Previously, health funding requests by law, and I'm 99% sure on this, can be unappropriated expenses when you're partially self-insured, meaning you don't have to budget for them. So previously, we never budgeted for health funding requests because they would say, how do you know? You have to pay them. How do you know what's going to arise for any given person? We decided to make the move 2 years
2
ago?
years ago. to at
2
least-
years
at least
ago.
Fund or budget something.
Correct.
That's why I see the change in the
Yeah,
particular
it was
line item.
always in a 999 number, meaning unappropriated, but it was always a part of the general fund, and we moved it up to an appropriated line item so that we had a better, like, thumb on the pulse of what you guys could see of what was being spent.
Okay.
I don't know if that helps answer that question.
So I wanted to just show at the bottom, for whatever this might add to the conversation, is that this 1,063,000 is the total of all of these costs out per employee's plan. I don't know if that helps.
Okay, so,
add to
I mean,
this
the
at all.
1,063,000 sounds like a number for the health insurance funding
For the
requests.
basically the premium.
Not the premium. It's my opinion, your premiums are closer to the numbers up in this upper section.
Here.
Yep.
So when each one selectively by employee is assigned, employee, employee spouse, employee child, family, each employee has a row on this worksheet, and using the total cost is here in this column to get us to the 1,063,000. Then the different columns you see here, there's a few headings along the bottom. Each fund then has portions that Joe had attributed out across how their payroll happened. So this first number happens to be the general fund related payroll proportion, same then proportion for insurance. This is the employee contribution portion that comes out of their paycheck. This column here, the 188. The 55 is the Lowett Public Safety Fund proportion. And then we work our way across the rest of the titles you can see. So when we add all of the various pieces that come into play together, it does come back and balance out to the 1,063,000, just as a way to double check that each portion that's paying a piece of this.
So
does
then where would the
fit.
premiums be? If you're saying these are health insurance funding requests, then where are the premiums?
Both of them.
It's not both of them.
Okay.
So we'd have to talk about this and
Yeah, that's.
figure it out, but.
That's fine. And like I said, if we want to bring Carl in on it, then we can kind of explain it to all of us so we all understand.
Why don't we do that?
Yeah.
So I don't want to spend all night on this. It's very, very important.
It is
Why don't we
important,
do
yeah.
that?
For
It is
sure,
important.
for sure. Joe, what else you want to mention about your
I mean, we
particular
covered pretty much
budget?
everything on there.
I guess we'll stay off the payroll tab, right?
Please, yeah.
But you have a request there about payroll?
On which one?
In general, or does it relate to the salary ordinance? I'm not looking at a particular box here.
Oh, I don't have a question about it. No.
No, do you have something to share with them about what's included in your budget?
Not with respect to the budget, no.
Okay.
I think it's all kind of self-explanatory.
At the bottom then, we mentioned already about the 275 as a placeholder. The fire contract is the volunteer donation, I understand happens.
Can we go back to the placeholder? Why are we putting a $275,000 placeholder in the budget?
The placeholder is only the 258 that is equivalent to the max levy appeal. so that there's an expenditure equal to the revenue that is hoped to be received there.
How come we've never had to do that in the past?
I don't know why you haven't done it before. It's, as opposed to
Do an additional
distributing that hopeful receipt all over the place to different places, it's just simply there now, and once it's approved, then council can transfer it to where they feel it appropriate to spend.
So in other words, if we don't get it, it's just one item that has to be changed instead of,
No, because your budget, in my opinion, is going to be approved regardless of if you get the max levy, because your cash reserves are so big, the state isn't going to care if you have a balanced budget. They'll let you spend every last penny you can. So why, I don't understand why we would put in a $275,000 placeholder.
Well, what would you recommend?
I wouldn't put it in. I would remove that.
just leave the 250.
Personally, I would
some
leave,
thousand out.
I wouldn't put it in.
But you're likely to get it.
And as I read
But your
the,
budget's already over your expenditures, or your budget's already over what your revenues are, so why would you put in another 275,000 on the budget side?
Because I think, it sounds like because it closer represents what you're likely to get.
well,
But
as
you're
I-
already over on the budget side, and if the whole goal is to balance the budget, why would you
Well, that's
extend
one
your
goal,
budget
right?
another 275,000?
Well, one goal for sure, well, I'm just saying, from my understanding, one goal for sure is to have a balanced budget, but then also to be accurate. So if this is a placeholder for money you're likely to get, that seems to make sense to include it, to me.
But it's already there in other places. I don't whatever, you guys
How
can
would it
do.
be if you didn't have it?
I'm just saying that if your budget exceeds revenue already, why would you put an additional $275,000 placeholder in the budget to further exceed revenue?
Well,
As
I'm
I-
not sure.
As I understand the paper from the DLGF about the max levy appeal also, part of the application is to show that, or to demonstrate that there's a need for the reason for the appeal, that there's a use for the money. You're not just simply asking for it just because.
So are you saying if we take the $275,000 out, our budget expenditures are going to be less than our revenue?
It's 258, right?
To the
Well,
258.
I see 275.5, but,
Well, the last year was 17.5 was there, so we just added to that spot.
right, but the last year, the 17.5 was there for a purpose. Now you're saying it's there just for a placeholder. So that, yeah, that would be my question. If you removed 275,000 out of the budget, are you saying that the removal of that 275 will put our expenditures
Under revenue.
under revenues?
Right.
So then raises and some of those other things shouldn't necessarily be an issue because you have a use for them there. Why would we remove those and put a placeholder in there for the council to just transfer where it saw fit? I don't, okay, go ahead. That's a policy question.
We can move on then.
The bottom of the town council budget, the 120, Joe, remind me, please.
Those are anticipating costs for town hall, concrete work and stuff like that here as well.
Things that are identified already, right? As we move down the town council budget, the CCD fund over the years has used different lines that are not being used now, which is why you see the empty spaces there. They just simply are often repopulated from the gateway system, so it's just in the documents. What is planned, though, is this gas and electric, the lease rental payment, and other services and charges consistent with what you had this year in the budget, as well then as other capital items below that. This total does come to the 1.1 million, which is slightly higher than the anticipated revenues. With the increase in the CCD rate, or the reset, I should say, which just, again, keeps it level for you, that property tax amount would be 960,000. There's always some miscellaneous revenues that come in above that. Beth has predicted the revenue that you see on the list slightly lower for any kind of uncollected amount that may happen. So it's just a way to try to be as realistic as you can in the prediction of what you'll actually receive.
We would recommend moving gas and electric up to 182,000 based on actuals. Just, that's somewhat substantial.
Okay,
I'm not calling out every little thing, but that one to me is a substantial one.
thank you.
We did actuals plus 5% increase in NIPSCO. They won't tell you what their increase is gonna be, but we always use an increase of 5%.
That's a good idea.
Was that EBSCO?
Yep,
It's an unknown going forward.
it is.
Yep, I think that's wise. Agree with that.
As you scroll down, this is another debt payment. And a few of these that you see, well, this one has the economic development, the EDC is here as a low budgeted item because there's a low revenue coming in. The solid waste is, I believe, budgeted in the Public Works tab. It just happens to be not hidden in the Town Council tab. As you get to the cable TV franchise, of course, that's specialized revenue that comes in. Again, budgeted fairly consistently with what you see before. Beth pointed out
We have an
earlier
election,
today
yeah, election,
about
so,
the election costs.
yep.
And so that adjustment should be made. And Beth, you think the 30 is sufficient?
I don't know what they're gonna charge. We'll get a feel this year for the November elections, but,
What did they charge last year?
we didn't have an election last year, so
You're
we'd have
right.
to
How
go
about the year
back.
before?
$25,875.83 in 2020.
Which is over here. Presidential election, so I don't know how much that factors into the cost. I mean, the machines are the machines and, you know, people demand the stations are what they are, so.
Same amount of poll workers and all that.
So I would think 30,000 is a good placeholder there, but we
Okay.
are gonna have a 2023 election.
A lot of these, certainly we can pause if you need to, but
Trash operating.
are very consistent to what has been before.
We feel like
And-
garbage needs to increase.
Yeah, that's in the Public Works tab. We'll come back to that
Okay.
if it's okay. Riverboat revenue, again, similar how you budgeted before with CCMG and things, other equipment, possibly if you have cash available. Revenues, I think, were predicted a little bit conservative, again, not knowing what casino stuff, although Hard Rock's rocking, so hopefully that stays going for you.
Get an extra $1,500.
And of course, if, for example, that revenue comes in super high, much more than expected, you can do an additional appropriation if you had to later in the year, if you need to. So the GO bond, I think the expense is here again because it wasn't
It's gonna be
spent
moved
yet,
over,
right?
yeah.
It's been spent down, so I would lower that amount. It's like 2.8 now,
Oh, for it cost,
93rd Avenue.
was there cost on that? That we're
I
building?
brought it right now as of date. We're at, I think, $2,783,000 roughly. But then again, we don't know what we're gonna spend for the rest of the year, so just a slight change, I would bring that number down.
Are you all right if I just type in some of these right now while we're talking and resave it?
Yeah.
Okay.
2,783,903. And then I would just put the 90,000 back in brine. So it's there, you don't wanna undercut it. And then you have sort of a remaining balance of 106,426 under general project that you can sort of move as your needs come, like whatever, you know, if you're gonna purchase land or you're gonna move forward on that 93rd project faster, you can move that 100,000 from project down to wherever you need it to go. But I wouldn't undercut it. I'd put it in. You have it, it's in the fund.
And this project
Worst
cost line?
cases is you don't spend it.
What
So I'm
number-
sorry, project 445, right above 93rd Avenue.
Oh, thank you.
I'd put in 106,426, which should get you pretty close to what you have in the fund,
Okay.
give or take, don't quote me on exact.
Lit special distribution was a particular thing that occurred several years back. It's grayed out because it's not a current item to use. So the fund is there just for the history of it, but it's not being budgeted. Community events, Christmas events are listed in other funds. It just so happens that they weren't hidden here. So those are budgeted, just not in this particular spot. As well as the farmer's market, for example. The ARP, this is the current balance in the fund after having received your second draw for that. Obviously, the particulars of that expenditure still need to be worked out, but having it in at least a line item in the budget allows it to be ready and available for you. This electric is mentioned in the public works budget. Dog park is in parks.
More bonds.
And the bond payments should be lined up correctly. Beth, if you find a problem, let me know, but I think I got those situated. And the redevelopment funds, RDCs, have some numbers in them. They don't have to be approved necessarily at this particular process. Clerk treasurer is the next tab.
I mean, there aren't,
Again.
yeah, many changes. There,
So these payroll, again, are pulled right from the math of the payroll tab. I know in the past, Beth, you've put in, and we had talked along the way, as we were adjusting some of those raise percentages, about having an extra 1,000 or so in some of those payroll lines. I'm not sure if you want to still keep that going forward.
my numbers are slightly different than yours. So there really, I don't think there is an extra 1,000 in there. It's just my recommendation, similarly to what you were talking about with the stormwater ordinance, to advertise this high and reduce, because obviously you can't increase it once it's advertised. So as far as raises and employees and all of that stuff is concerned, I don't think it's prudent to take them out with an idea of adding them back in. I think you need to have them in for the advertisement of your budget, and then if you decide to remove them, then you remove them. Because otherwise, you're just leading yourself into additional appropriations if you choose to add them back in. So I'm of the opinion that you put it all in, and then you start taking it out. Not, I don't know, the other way around. But, yeah, so my numbers are slightly off. We can talk, I mean, not even, we're talking $4,000 difference in that
Sorry.
personal services category. So, I mean, we can go through them line by line, or I sent them to you.
Yeah, yeah.
And I did all mine off 5% for every employee, just because that's the highest that you guys would be considering. And then you can always reduce if that's your goal. For payroll for the police department, my numbers factor in 2, fire department 2, building and planning 1 code enforcer. I don't remember who, parks 2, full-time recreational staff. I put in the max. And then they can decide if they want to go with the max, or they don't like the numbers, they can cut.
On your services and charges area, do you have any comments you want to make about any of those spots?
They're pretty much,
There's some shifting in these top 3
Oh.
lines, but the total is the same, so the net difference is 0.
all I did is just contractual services and consulting can go either way, so I just put them all in one line item to stop having to do same category transfers throughout the year. Because for a budgeting standpoint, if I'm going to use consulting for Baker Tilly, I want all of their bills to come out of the same line. I don't want to divide it up between contractual services and consulting services. So then all I end up doing is the same category transfer. So, and to prevent a same category transfer, I just zeroed out contractual services and moved it up to consulting.
You think that fund is not needed?
No,
Consulting?
it's the same thing in 2 different ways.
Understood.
It's called consulting and then contractual services. So instead of taking bills and dividing them up between two
I
different
got
line
it.
items.
Right, but one's at zero, so that's my question. So one's
Right.
at zero.
Yes,
one's at
so
7.
that one I'm saying
Not
is
needed?
not needed.
Okay, thank you.
Because I moved it, it's needed in a different place, under consulting.
And then I left the bond payments, just so Beth can double check. And the GO bond, obviously, the project costs are, the expenses, I mean, are needing to be controlled there. So the change we made in this fund and the other tab will make sure that that is consistent all the way across. Building department, again, the salary numbers are pulled through from the salary tab. Right now is showing the 3% raise. I think Sergio maybe is higher than last employee, or,
Yeah, because we had modified his.
yeah,
salary.
okay, so that's the difference in that particular spot. Most of the rest of their budget was pretty similar. Engineering does have 25,000 more than this current year's budget. Joe, did you have any comments from Sergio on his items?
No, I mean, it's pretty consistent with what he was doing.
Okay.
One of the things that we talked about in order to bring the budget in balance was possibly removing the vehicle that's indicated there. So we removed that vehicle, and that's now in the ARPA fund.
Okay. Parks Department. This top section is the general fund of the Parks Department, remember, which is a real small or smaller portion of their overall expenditure areas. Pretty consistent in what you have for this current year. Was there a reason the gas electric was suggested less?
I don't think it should be suggested less. I get 23,000. I wondered the same thing.
So it's still less than last year.
Yeah,
I'm
because
pretty sure that's the number that had been, given to us, so we can certainly change it. That was not something that I actively, or Joe actively changed, so.
Should it be 5% higher than 24,000? You used 5% on the last one,
23,000.
the last increase for NIPSCO?
well, technically it was higher, the actual expenditures, because NIPSCO hadn't billed us. Jerry, you'll probably remember this. They hadn't billed us for certain accounts because they were doing some things on their end. So we even put in a reserve of that 30,000 in the general fund for this year to cover it in the event the bills, we didn't know when they were going to send it to us. They ended up getting it to us in 2021, so we paid that. I'm not anticipating to have a backlog of all these invoices again this year. So we knocked it back down. We took out the influx of those bills from the total
Right.
times 5%, and that brought us to 23,000.
Okay.
I mean, you can keep it at 24 if you feel more comfortable. It's neither here nor there. We don't pay insurance out of there, so you can get rid of that, which gives you a little buffer. But we could talk, those are minor things that we can deal with
Okay.
later.
The larger area of the parks budget, of course, is the non-reverting fund. Joe, employee count and things.
Yeah, so the only difference is proposed a full-time program director, I think was the title that was given. That was a proposal by the park superintendent, and then a part-time staff as well.
Because on his spreadsheet, there were two. So that's where we just need clarification. I built my number in with 2. 30 hours is technically full-time, so that would be 2 full-time people. So again, if the
they're
council's going to
FTE or-
consider 2, it's the, I mean, if you want, you could pull it up if you want.
Well, I
The
don't- I don't want- I don't
recreational
wanna put names out
specialist
there
and the
like that.
recreational something else. I don't remember the specific titles.
I think a program director or something like that.
Something,
Yeah,
but as soon as you hit 30 hours per week, you're full-time.
Right.
So that's 2 full-time people. So again.
But I don't know if that was, that was 30 hours FTE, if that was, 1 person or 2 people.
It was 1 person, and then you had 40 hours for the other full-time person. So I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I would suggest putting them,
Well, if it's
Both
30
then.
hours and it's part-time, then we're gonna have to back that down, because that's not considered.
it's, right, but it's not in either. That other person for the 30 hours isn't in part-time or full-time.
Okay.
Only your seasonals, I think, unless you added it back in. You might, no. I don't know. We'll look at
We'll
it.
look at it, yeah.
A lot of the expenses and supplies and then services and charges are pretty similar.
There was one.
Increase in supplies.
Oh, was that, wait, move that mouse. It must be, maybe it's further down.
Building and grounds has a small increase in it, 17,000. And in looking, I think this is one of the funds.
What number was it?
Oh, sorry, here.
Yeah.
I still haven't memorized all the new fund numbers. Currently, with the expenses listed, the revenue is predicted to come in $35,000 less, just so that you can have that in your reference point.
Oh, there it is, engineering.
Park and Rec Capital,
There could be, you might as well call it consulting, but that's what that's for, is for the needs assessment, for general engineering services, and then there's a park impact fee study that needs to be begun sooner rather than later for the 5-year park impact fee. So that's got to be put out for RFQ here sooner rather than later. Actually, that'll be put out for this year. I mean, this year, meaning fourth quarter, we got to get that started, so that way we can get that done.
and then the other line is 5-year related capital projects. Here's where you'll see some of the community events funds. I have a concern about the Freedom Fest line in regard to revenue coming in to support that. It is its own fund, and so you should only be able to spend the actual cash balance that you have in it. There are some people that would say go ahead and budget it high. The DLGF is not going to monitor this fund because it's a home ruled fund, with the understanding that you can only actually spend the money later once you actually have received the revenue. I find that to be a little bit risky myself. And personally, I believe the better plan is to budget based on the revenue that you think you're going to get. This last year, I think it was at 17,000, if I remember right.
Something like that.
And so, again, a decision you as a council have to make. Those are just the various things to think about.
Understood, right, because you have fireworks and everything that's gonna go up in cost.
Hope not.
I've seen fireworks in another part of the budget, though. I think that was in the council budget. Did you have it?
Yeah, but it wasn't actually budgeted in there.
So
That
it's
was
gotta
out of
be
the
in that
EDC
number, though, I
bud-
would think,
I've seen it in
57.
the line item.
57 includes
It might have been,
fireworks.
it might have been in a previous
Gotta be in
budget year
there.
or something like
It was
that.
in a
And
previous
that's
budget.
gotta have like the portion of the public works and, you know, the employees and all that in there too, I think.
No employees, but it does include,
What does it include?
it includes the fireworks and all other expenses that you guys,
All other expenses, right? So
except
So the,
salaries.
so the expenses I saw on the last sheet had all those in there. They had public works and.
That's not from this line
police
item,
department, But this doesn't have it, so we might wanna look at that and make sure they are in there. Maybe-
but you have to have the revenue to pay for it, so I don't know if I would even grow this anymore.
Yeah, I don't think I would pay.
Well, so I'm saying that number looks pretty similar to what it was with all those other numbers in there. Maybe double check that. So that looks like we had fireworks and all of the labor and, you know, workers' pay and everything, all the expenses I saw from this year. So maybe double check that.
Farmers Market, of course, receives some revenue from the vendor fees and things associated with it. So that's good to go there. Police department, 3 tabs left. Again, payroll tied into the payroll tabs. Right now, the numbers that you see here include 1 additional employee. Again, can easily be changed, overnight time before tomorrow to include 2 if you so choose. This grant area, Beth, correct me if I'm wrong, is reimbursed, of course, through the grant revenues that come back, but you still have to have a place to spend it from.
Correct.
One of these civilian areas is, I'm sorry, I take that back, fire department, I was crossing departments a moment. Clothing allowance is listed as chief requested. You see a note there that he's requesting it increase to 1,250 this year as opposed to 1,000 that it is for this current year. Also an increase in the request for the reserve clothing allowance, the reserve officer, from 500 to 750. Those are most of the comments in
And we
the
got 2 vehicles scheduled.
general fund.
I did notice on his capital, he had requested a total of 132,000 for the vehicle replacements, not 120,000, so that may be something you'd have to look at. Yeah, he's estimating 66,000 per car.
Continuing ed fund concerns me. Chief was asking for these various things that you see, which is fine and good. The problem is that the revenue doesn't support that for this specialized fund. And the revenue is only predicted to be 11,000. So that's a huge difference, and you see there's not a lot of cash balance there available.
What was he using that for continuing ed?
That's what it says.
Ammo and,
Is that something we can move over to the
something needs to be moved somewhere.
local option
Yeah.
income tax?
Yes, Lowit could absolutely pay for some of those things.
Well, I think that's what we should do.
I would take a low it, we're gonna have a lot of discrepancies in. For payroll. But,
And the PD special revenue, not really, I don't think anything different. This year's budget for next year's budget, same. And then here's a public safety fund. As it stands, salary ordinance, of course, as you know, has 10% salary paid from the Lowit fund, 90% paid from the general fund. These fire department lines are blank here because they are in the fire department line. And as a total, then they both come into the all funds tab, and so the total on the budget page does include both departments together when we're looking at this budget side.
so the total on the budget, all funds page, I noticed, unless it's been added, did not include the fire department 77 overtime, civil overtime, FICA Medi, perf for the 77 fund, civil perf, and group insurance. If you're taking the firefighters in the police department and you're doing a true 90-10 split, the 10% did not carry over in the budget unless something's been added.
Into here, okay.
So
Thank you.
that's substantial.
We'll get that fixed. Asset forfeiture, budgeted
Ooh,
small,
I'm
small
sorry.
revenue.
Also, if you go back to PD expenses, oh, did you take them both out?
You want me to go up?
Yeah, it looks like you removed both of them, unless they're somewhere else. 215 and 290,
right here.
You had somewhere FD expenses at 22,000, but then PD got nothing. But I don't know if that was on the budget spreadsheet. So usually they get identical
Right.
line items for expenditures. So if you're giving 22 to the fire, then police should get 22,000 too. But I didn't look at your individual workbooks. I was looking at your all funds.
Okay, yeah, I'll check that.
Why that's different,
It might have gotten hard-coded on the all funds tab, and
not on the
so we'll
sheet.
check that. PD gift, again, small, asset forfeiture, both small revenue, small expenses. And Beth, I think you had asked a question about vests and things. Let me just find my note.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can just, if you want to email all that to me, I'm just looking for where did you build in certain capital expenses, under what line items for budgeting purposes. I mean, just tasers, evidence kits, furniture replacement, LPRs, certain things that they had listed. I just would like to know where you built them in, but you can tell me that tomorrow, that's fine.
Public Works. You can see numbers are pretty similar to this year. Bob had asked about having a separate area for some pond maintenance, a separate line for it. And that is not in this at the moment. I needed some feedback from you on,
Pond maintenance wouldn't come out of motor vehicle highway.
no, not out of MVH.
Okay.
Just,
It does have,
this is all the Public Works stuff. So, assuming council wants him to be able to, operate a little bit more efficiently, maybe with some of that stuff, we can find a place to put it.
pond maintenance already has an earmark somewhere else. I want to say it's under a PO. It's on my PO spreadsheet, so it's not cable TV anymore, but it might be, I don't know. I don't want to quote it, but it's already built into their budget, at least through this year, from a different fund. Without looking at my spreadsheet, I don't know.
Okay,
Used to be cable TV.
okay. Any comment, Joe, on the office equipment or the purchase of the pickup truck?
No, but he was emphatic about making sure he had that pickup truck in there.
Oh, only other thing, Fund 203, or whatever it's now, 2203. If the estimated revenue, it's a small change, but the CCMG match should be increased to 366,184.
Right.
Small change, but just something.
Local road and street, pretty similar as well. We've got those up here at the top of your spreadsheet as far as just comparing your revenues to expenditures. There's a nice cash balance in motor vehicle, obviously, but you'll need to think about whether you want to try to come more in line with that or not.
Beth, is some of that for the CCMG now?
Fund 2203 is our we always take that half of the restricted MVH funds and we
Right.
put it right towards MVH. So that 365 that you see in Fund 2203 is MVH.
Gotcha.
That that number. That's always your first chunk, or at
Yeah.
least historically, of your match. You do have your match higher. I don't know if that was done purposely, but
Well, just because of the extra cost.
So you
with-
did
with-
purposely do the
yeah.
1.1.
We went over it because with the way prices are going, it just makes sense.
Okay. I thought that. I just wanted to double check.
Yeah. Kind of like what happened with us this year.
Almost done. Trash, then. Here's the conversation, please. Currently, Joe can explain more about the current contract, but
The attorney's looking at that. I'll just leave it at that for now, but
What number, is it a 5% increase? I didn't see that's higher. What, do you know what percentage increase that is? Did you just, that you put in there?
This is based off of,
That's 103% higher. But
3%.
I would anticipate that number probably and likely.
But you also have to factor in 550 new homes on top of a 3%, if you want to use 3%.
Right.
You still have to factor in that next year, we're going to see roughly another 550 homes at 2087.
That's right.
So that's got to be factored into this figure.
Well, and it's not going to be 2087, so, yeah,
But still, I would go higher than the number you have.
yeah.
At the very least, we get 2,219,650 with no increased rate.
so can we increase revenues, or aren't you comfortable doing that?
Well, you're going to have to increase revenues with the new garbage contract.
No, I meant,
Right.
I'm sorry, maybe that was a bad question. In relation to the 550 new homes that they're going to be paying as well, right?
This budget, you're going to set higher than revenues because it's on actual what we take in. If I'm understanding you correctly, you're looking at what we currently have. It's going to be lower than what it's set at because the homes haven't come in yet. So this is one of those funds that
It's going to fluctuate.
you have to watch. We always have to watch the fund balance before we write the check.
So here's a question to that. Is it something the council should be considering is, are we going to add any kind of cost associated with that to, first of all, build that cash balance up? And second of all, to cover any expenses for billing, for
Well, the
clerk
garbage
treasurer.
contract is about to go out to bid or get redone, so when we know the concrete
Right.
cost of what it's gonna cost us, then build your rate around what it's gonna cost us.
Right, but what I'm saying is to have it, so if it came in at $1, and are we gonna have it $1.05 in terms of that, and take the 5 cents to build that cash balance up, to use it for,
Fine?
cost for clerk's office, I mean, there's costs associated with that. So, I mean, we're kind of getting free billing service with the water billing, and I don't know if that's necessarily, a good thing.
So I agree with that. So, I mean.
But we're getting a lower cost for garbage service because we are doing the billing too.
Right. So
So-
you're not looking to have bigger users of trash removal have a free lunch on the general fund, which is paid by, proportionately through our, through taxes.
So
yeah,
do we add a nickel, do we add 20 cents, do we add 15 cents, or whatever the amount is? I think we need to figure that out.
Whatever you guys decide
Yeah.
on that, I'm just saying for the garbage, I would move that up to
Okay.
at least the 2.2 million. And we know it's going to most likely require an additional appropriation because if you add a user fee or a administrative cost, let's
Right.
call it that.
Right.
And if there's an increase in the garbage contract, which we would make a reasonable assumption there will be,
Yeah.
we're going to have to ask for an additional, but I would still get it as close to what, at least by housing units, to what we
So
think it should be.
we're at 8,100 now,
Correct.
and that's what we're getting billed at. So next year, we're going to be billed at
Another
8,300.
figure, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I'm saying take that
yeah.
anticipated growth and add it in.
I would figure in double your increase, at least, at the 103. I'd go 106, just to be safe. But then also to Beth's point, we need to build in the additional units that we're going to be billed. So that's, we could figure the hard number tomorrow.
Yeah, but if we're gonna be billing for an extra 200 houses that get built, or an extra 300 houses that get built.
Right.
Let's just say 300. We're also gonna be collecting from those 300.
Correct. It's going to be a wash.
So there will be additional revenue.
That's what I was trying,
Yes.
Yes, but you're
It's
just trying to
gonna be
get.
a
a
wash.
Yes, you are
accurate number.
100%
Absolutely.
right.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Yeah,
It's
you're
gonna
trying
be a
to
We
wash.
collect the
Trying to
payment
be
to
accurate.
pay the bill.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
We have to consider being careful going forward with the economic problems that the country is experiencing. Everything I'm reading, and I just read another article today from a reputable financial group, that they expect housing to collapse shortly within the next 6 months because.
To your
it's-
point, Brian, you make that's a solid point. We've been tracking our collections, and we're trending to where we're carrying a larger uncollected balance month to month.
Well, I'm noticing my monthly reports that are showing me what we're building versus last year. and we're already dramatically starting to fall.
Okay.
I thought that magic.
But you're
pill
saying
later date would solve
delinquencies are up.
everything.
I'm saying, yeah, late payments,
Yes.
people not
So
paying
basically,
timely.
yeah, we can't go counting on, 350 bills extra every year, when right now, with the current state of the economy, I wouldn't bet on much of anything until we find out how this is gonna all shake out.
I agree with that caution.
But
Needed.
we've got to conservatively approach it, because once you're committed, pulling back is not gonna be anything pleasant for any of us.
That's right.
Okay, last tab is the fire department. What you see here, this large increase in payroll, these couple lines, are due to what I referenced earlier very quickly, which is both a stipend and an increase to try to levelize or equalize, I suppose. I can open that fire salary tab and take the names to the side if you want to see that, or
Pull it over there.
Can you
first.
just show them that chart on the way bottom?
Yeah.
The sort of down, yeah.
Okay. So this incentive column, oh, let me make it
Can you wait?
bigger.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry. Maybe one more.
That's great.
This incentive column then relates to what you see down here, which is, and I can't show you the
Further down.
rank.
Keep going down, go down, go down. If you would, thank you. Keep going. I just don't want, if you're gonna move over to the left, now you can.
I can't though, because the rank is under the same column as the names.
Oh.
The point was that in these striped lines here, this is the incentive area that Chief was asking for.
That's your battalion chief, captain, lieutenant.
It's-
Right,
Yeah,
the
chief.
ranks
Yeah.
are coming down the page. So this is the number of humans that it relates to, obviously the one FTE. And then this total is listed back in the top to be able to pull into the salaries altogether. But I wanted you to be able to see what he was asking for here. There are 2 people that qualify in 2 areas. And so their incentive then is reflective of that.
Would be battalion chief and EMS director.
Yeah, I forget what the other one is.
Firefighter, medic one? I don't know.
No.
Or lieutenant in training.
I wouldn't even say, though, an EMS director, that's like a separate job, not really an incentive. It's like getting an extra hourly rate for the work they're doing. You have to do it. Someone has to manage the EMS. So it's not the same to me as that one you have to keep. That one you can't get rid of. The other ones you can make decisions on that, like.
Yeah,
the-
and this is presented to you exactly how he gave it.
Yep.
This is not altered in any fashion. We do have overtime listed
agree
and
with
talked
that,
with Chief about over the course of a year, an average number of overtime hours per week, so that we can build that into the budget, just in the way that the tabs were coming through as well. And then the salary areas here were increased based on Chief's request. So the hourly rate is more than last year, going to try to get in line with.
Well, is that hourly rate there, is that considered with the 3% raise?
That this is different. So this is the rate that Chief asked for to get them in line in comparison to the police department, and then
Well, that's
You'll
gonna take some discussion.
Yes.
It's
you
still
know,
at the
and I'd
103
Love
though.
to do all that for sure. I think we need to be
I think
cautious.
it's still at the 103.
and again, this is how he presented it, so we're presenting it to you how he asked. And then the 3%
Is built into the
is
hour.
built in on top of that, based on what you see up, with the column.
So the stipend, the hourly incentive, if you will, for the different rank is one thing. The 103 or the 3% increase is already factored into the hourly, if you will.
In this column.
Yeah, but
Right.
what hourly? The base hourly or something
It's based
that
on
we've
what
changed?
the
What
cur-
the chief wanted?
No, the hourly rates are still based on what the existing
existing.
Salary
Okay.
ordinances times
Okay.
103.
Okay,
All right.
okay.
The only thing that's different, I guess, if you will, is the incentive or the rank,
Right.
which is similar to what PD has.
The hourly rates are only the 5 or 3% higher than what's in the salary ordinance.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Has it been resolved that we're going to annualize their pay?
That's in
That was the
there.
other, that
It's,
was, the- that was
it's
the other
here,
thing.
okay, because that's been a big point of contention for years.
Yeah, that was
And
the
it's
other
been a
thing.
mess for the clerk treasurer, and if we can get that off her back, that's a big step forward.
Obviously, with a large increase in pay comes a large increase as well in the perf,
Costs.
FICA, Medicare, all of those things, of course, likewise increase as well. So that's why you see almost 2 million as opposed to 1.6 down here in the total for personal services.
That ain't gonna happen.
I don't think there's a little bit of change. The fuel, Chief went through and tried to estimate best he can based on current usage and then, of course, current pricing. And the change in services and charges was kind of a little bit in a couple places. Training and travel, he discussed with us some of the certifications. A little bit increased gas and electric, and then a larger part here. So under the subscriptions and dues, the UL grading or
Testing.
testing stuff has to occur. So he's attributed the cost for that here.
And so that cost was somewhere else in the last budget?
It's not an annual item as I understand it. It's a,
I think it's every other year or.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, and we should see it in 2021?
It'll come back.
The 28,000 that was paid here.
I see it, yep. Okay. Substantially higher.
Ambulance replacement, pretty consistent as far as budget goes. And then, their portion of the,
Oh, so the, if I'm not mistaken, just that UL testing is annual. Just so you know. So we'd probably want to make a note for that in the budget. Just for next year.
okay, maybe I misunderstood them when
Yeah.
we met, but last year was only budgeted at $1,200.
Right.
For this year, it was only budgeted at 4,700.
I don't know where it was paid from, but
Okay.
somehow, some way it got paid. Whether they took it out of CUME or something like that, I don't know.
Okay. So I'll double check the lit fund Beth mentioned about the extra 10% with the other distribution things. Cume fire equipment, pretty,
Yeah, that was the other thing. I know we talked about kind of using, the cumulative for the fire department, for the fire truck and for the ambulance, but honestly, we're gonna have to take a look at some alternative financing and then whether we use the cumulative fire to cover that, the cost for
You
that.
have to reestablish the.
Yes,
The
yes.
rate as well.
Right.
Yes.
So, I mean, we're just not gonna, when we're talking about budget stuff, it's not gonna make sense. And we're not gonna have enough money realistically to do that, so, it makes sense to include that as part of whether we're gonna finance it for 2 years or 3 years or however.
Start looking at finance.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna look at some options, so we'll have some options for you.
Or use your ARPA funds for it. It's a one-time expense.
There's that too.
That's right.
Just partial.
It's an option.
Whatever, yeah, not the whole price tag.
Right.
Chief had some really good news. I was hoping maybe he would have been here at some point tonight to tell you himself. Do they know about the grant yet?
Oh, I don't know if he sent that out to anyone.
He was approved for, or he has heard back about one of the 2 grants that he had applied for, $350,000
It was for, yeah.
to cover some of the
Excellent.
gear that needed to be replaced. So he was very excited about
That's
that.
great.
When's the
That is
ruling
great.
on when it is granted? if and when?
Oh, like
Granted,
cash in hand.
It's already been done?
Yeah, he's already received the approval. I don't know about cash in hand, but
No, no,
We'll-
but I
we'll-
mean, if
we'll
we've
have
got
a-
the approval.
We'll have a resolution on the council's agenda for the next meeting to
Okay.
accept the grant,
I was
so.
gonna say, that's a healthy chunk for
Yeah.
our fire truck.
so we did take that. That had been in a spot here. I'm sorry,
Excellent.
I'm forgetting where, but
Yeah, I
that's
believe it
been
was for
taken out.
490,000 and it was split.
In total?
Yeah.
So what, 245?
I think we got more than that. It
You
was
said
like
490. You split in 490?
Yeah, well, it's split in 490 with Dyer, but I think it's,
Oh, but that would be
Yeah.
245 each.
no, I think it's actually more than that we're getting, so.
Oh, okay.
Beth, what time could you meet with us in the morning? I can come back over here.
Yeah, it took 350 off his budget. roughly.
Whenever.
Is
And I'm
9?
here at 7 a.m., so,
Oh, could we meet as early as 8 then and get started?
sure.
Joe? Just roll out of bed and get here.
I'm just gonna stay here.
We have work to do.
Come on, Joe.
He's awake. He's
actually-
He's just not moving it.
I have a 9:30.
Okay,
Are we gonna be done by then?
I hope
It's
so.
important that you get this done tomorrow, and, because there's a few
Right. I'm gonna-
questions and discrepancies, one with the insurance, so.
I think that's here
I'm
anyway.
gonna make a resolution that Joe's gotta be there 8 and as long as it
No, I mean, I
takes.
can make 8. It just, as long as, if it goes over, I'm gonna
We should be all right.
be double parking.
My phone goes
So if we can keep it to an hour and a half, that would be great.
Yeah, I know he's an early riser. I'm joking.
So that's kind of the end of all the department tabs, and obviously all the different pieces are included there. Maybe
Those are
I
the-
spoke too soon. I forgot to
Oh, the
mention the
white
2
water and
district
sanitary,
tabs.
yeah.
Sorry. These are both pretty short, very consistently listed as what you have from years past. The salaries, payroll things tie into the other salary tabs, like you've been seeing, and the expenses themselves, as you can see scrolling down, are pretty consistent. Engineering is listed a little bit higher for the water.
And they
then-
still have to be,
Did we
looked at
build-
by the sanitary board and the water board, so. I
And
mean,
you were taking these to them, right?
Yeah, these will be, presented to them.
What kind of?
I mean, obviously, they're gonna have to get presented to them.
What kind of inflation rate did you guys build into this?
Really more on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
It wasn't just across the
Say,
board, because,
Some of these, I'm looking at some of these numbers, and, you see the gas and electric, there's no
Right.
telling. They're
Well,
talking-
yeah, I mean, we went from
No.
65 to 80 on that, just for
But I'm
instance.
saying,
Yeah.
overall, for all departments
Mm-hmm.
and all funds, I don't think that 40% is too unreasonable, conservatively going forward, do you?
and a lot of that was relying on the department heads to have looked at what they actually spent
But
and
keep-
then
yeah,
juxtaposed to
keeping in
the
mind
increase.
Going forward,
So,
that they're thinking, last year's thinking, when they put this together, it was
Yeah.
a few months.
Right, but I think Beth sent out a email to the police chief about, gasoline costs and
No,
stuff
no,
like
no,
that, so I mean,
I'm
I think
just saying,
they've.
do we feel
yeah.
comfortable with what we're building in for the possible impact of inflation and gas and electric? Because just my personal bill at home, I'm watching it climb.
yeah,
And therefore, look at the amount of usage we have versus what's in the, but I'm just,
Well,
Yeah.
you're allowed to raise it up to 5%, so you gotta stay under that.
you mean overall the budget?
On your budget, they say you can give 5%.
No, but I'm saying pieces, yeah, this is individual pieces of the puzzle, Mike, that's all there's certain areas, gas and electric, fuel, gas, by the way, Beth, and I meant to ask this of you, what kind of word are you getting on our salt prices? You see, it's not gonna,
Davis said salt prices were also increasing.
well, not only increasing, I'll bet you, but also delivery charges are gonna go through the roof. And this is something we've gotta concern ourselves with because,
you wanna go above 5% increase on NIPSCO? I mean, that's changeable, for inflation, like if you're going back to gas and electric, are you feeling 5% is not enough of a?
I don't
buffer?
think it is, no.
What do you think is, because, you know, we call NIPSCO every year and every year. they
Well,
won't
you-
give
they're
us-
not gonna tell
They
you
won't.
anything.
But we try.
No,
And
no,
they
I
won't tell
understand.
us.
We're, as a homeowner, you've still got the same
Exactly.
problem.
So what do you think is a more realistic
To be
number?
honest with you,
Yes.
with gas and electric, I
Right.
would say somewhere 25, 30%.
There's
I
no way
hate
they're,
to
there's
say
no
it,
way they're
but-
gonna allow them to raise it that much.
Who was they, Jerry?
State regulation. We'll see.
They could make a good argument and say.
I was just gonna say, when have you ever seen public utilities? Yeah, they get hosed once in a while, but not
So we-
very
Two
often.
ways, you can do the 5%, Jerry, like we put in there with an understanding that if things really go awry.
We're gonna have to do an additional appropriation.
Well, and we're gonna have to look at cutting budgets
Well,
in
this
other
is what I'm-
areas
I'm
halfway
trying
through
to
the year
get.
if we have to, so.
I'm trying to conservatively approach it as much as possible, going from the jump.
I wasn't overly comfortable with 5% either, but if you increase it too much, then you throw your budget out of whack.
No, no, there's, it's double-edged sword.
If I could very quickly, go ahead.
I was gonna say, is there a qualified source that we can have an idea what that increase is?
On NIPSCO?
Not just on NIPSCO in particular, but energy cost. I know you can't get an expert on NIPSCO, but we can certainly go into the energy,
You don't trust the US
market, right, and
government,
have
do
a
you?
general increase in energy from, year over year. I think that percentage that has to be known, or at least a range of it.
Not that I'm aware of, I can double check, but nothing that,
Please do. I would-
nothing that I am.
How could it not?
Very
General
familiar
energy
with.
costs gotta be known, increase from year over year.
If I could very quickly, Daniel Dalton has been here with me this evening. I wanted to introduce him quick. I will be out starting the very end of the month for hopefully only a couple weeks, assuming all goes well, but a major surgery that'll keep me out of the office for a little while. So as you get into your voting time on the budget, Daniel will be here as an available resource. So we thought it was important for him to come tonight and hear all of this and start to be familiar with your thoughts so that he can jump in and hopefully be pretty seamless. So,
Welcome, Dan.
Nice to meet you.
so we'll get some adjustments made. Beth and Joe and I will meet in the morning and shoot you back another copy. And that way you have it available as you want to look at it, and we'll get the budget advertised and stay on schedule.
Wonderful.
Okay, thank you. Let me find my agenda here. I see nothing else on here, so is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. Is there support for that?
Second.
So
We are adjourned.
we need to save this and get it emailed back to
Thrilled
me
we had an open.
because I was realizing I'm changing on his computer.